I'd like to call the February 27th meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Cerna?
Here.
Kennedy? Here. Peters?
Here.
Frost? Here. Natoli?
Here.
And you have a quorum. This meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the Local Government Affairs channel, on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T U-verse cable systems. The meeting is closed caption and is webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated Friday, March 2nd at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any local library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address the board may fill out a speaker slip and hand it to staff. When the chair calls your name, please come to the podium. Please take a moment to silence your electronic devices.
Okay, thank you. Would everyone rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Okay, for your matters today, consent items 1 through 38. For item 6, you're adopting an ordinance, adopt the Sacramento County Hotel Worker Protection Act of 2018, ordinance adding Chapter 4.75, Title 4 to the Sacramento County Code, requiring hotel employees assigned to work in guest rooms to be equipped with portable emergency panic button or notification device. You waived reading on this on February 6th. On Item 7, you're also adopting an ordinance adding Chapter 2.28 to Title 2 of the Sacramento County Code relating to the Veterans Advisory Commission. You waived reading on this on February 6th. And I need a motion to continue Item 10, authorization to contract with KP LLC for consolidated utilities billing and services, bill print and mail, bill online presentment, and customer portal services.
That continuation date? Did you say that?
Continue. We are continuing that to, I have a note, to March 20th.
20th. Move to continue.
Second, please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay. Then also, we're going to take item 24 at the end of our morning session while a few details get worked out. Okay? And does anyone have anything they'd like to discuss? Mr. Natoli?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of quick items on item 5. If you could read that into the record, Madam Clerk.
Item 5, authorize the Deputy County Executive to execute the First Amendment to the loan agreement to the River Delta Fire Protection District to extend repayment for a $25,000 loan by 12 months to June 30th, 2019.
Okay. My point on this was, I mentioned this to Nav in a briefing yesterday, that I know that the district won't get the proceeds as outlined in the report of the assessment that was approved by landowners down there until a later date. And I just wanted to give the authority to the county executive, if they needed to, say, extend to 6 months, to do that rather than having to come back to the board. I think they're certainly good on the money. But rather than, it probably costs $3,000 just to bring this item to the board. So anyway, I appreciate that Dave and Villanueva and certainly others, maybe Mike Penrose, have been working on this. But I just want to give some additional authority under this, and I would suggest that we give you at least additional to the end of the calendar year 2019 in the event they needed that. I don't know if they do, but okay.
Okay.
Okay. And then, if I could just...
So Don, did you wish to comment on that item, Mr. Cerna?
No.
Okay, go ahead, Don.
Okay. And then just the other item was on item 17, which is on the consent calendar, an extensive amount of material in it, and it's the... okay, maybe you want to read that in.
Item 17, approval of the 2017-2021 California Child and Family Services Review System Improvement Plan.
And I think in light of certainly some of the focus we've had on both foster care placements, on trying to find permanency for children that are in the foster care system, but also discussions around Title 4E and what the status that might be, the waiver. I was going to ask if we could actually have this put for a future board date to actually have a staff presentation on this and some discussion. There's a lot of good demographic information, but also the plan is fairly extensive. It meets some of the federal requirements, as I understand it, and we don't need to have an hour-long presentation, but I do believe we need to have some additional discussion on this. So I don't know if we need to take action on that item today, or if we can actually continue to decide and put it over for.
We will bring it back as a timed item.
Okay.
May I chime in on that real quick? Yeah, I'm glad that Supervisor Tully makes that suggestion. On page 4 of the board letter, to note that the national standard for placing youth in a permanent environment is 40.5%, and we're below 13. That should be a red flag for everyone in terms of something's amiss here. So I would not only look forward to a report back or workshop, whatever it's going to be, but I'd like to understand what our kind of comprehensive strategy is to get to that standard. That's a lot of room to make up between 13% and 40.5%. So again, I'm supportive of the idea that's been suggested by Supervisor Tully.
Okay, so we'll leave it on the agenda, and you'll bring it back for a
Timed item.
timed item later. Okay, anything else? Ms. Frost? Mr. Cerna?
Yes, thank you. I had questions on 22 and 23, and then I just wanted to make issue a public thanks on 31. So if you can read 22, please.
Sure. Item 22, authorization to apply for and accept grant funding for the Domestic Cannabis Eradication Suppression Program from the United States Department of Justice in the amount of $50,000.
I'm prepared to support the staff recommendation on this, certainly, but one thing that I believe has changed that significantly affects the atmosphere in which our law enforcement would be using grant funding to eradicate cannabis is the fact that we now have recreational cannabis in California. And I didn't see mention of that in the board letter. There's certainly mention of general efforts to eradicate it as it relates to, unsanctioned medical growing and distribution. But I'd like to have a little more information, perhaps in the next briefing with the CEO, about how Prop 64 and the efficacy of that effort to establish recreational use of cannabis in California is affecting efforts like this.
Okay, will do.
Thank you. Item 23, please.
Item 23, to accept grant funds totaling $327,760 from Sacramento Regional County Sanitation District non-rate and non-fee revenue and reserve funding grant. Approve appropriation adjustment in the amount of $327,760 for regional parks.
Great, thank you. On the first page of the board letter, there's a reference made in the overview section stating that, quote, "This will free up a portion of general fund allocation, which was dedicated to the Parkways Initiative, as it can now be funded through the grant funds." My understanding was that funding that we would acquire through a successful grant application to regional SAN would be complementary, not supplementary, to the budget and the initiative generally to clean up the parkways. So I'd like to hear from the CEO about why this is purportedly being used to supplement, not complement.
What we had included in the fall was we did not know if we were going to get the grant funds or not, so we appropriated general fund with the understanding that if we got grant funds, that the general fund could be reverted. That was our understanding. If the board desires to leave this in there and augment it, we're okay with that too.
Yeah, as the director on Regional SAN that was pressing very hard for the availability of upwards of $500,000 that would be set aside annually from non-fee, non-rate revenue to expressly be used for parkway cleanup. I did that with, and I think the other directors that supported that did that with the understanding that this would be additive to whatever other efforts the county would employ to provide a cleaner, safer environment along our parkway. So I would respectfully ask that we consider that. Okay. To me, as we're hearing from our constituents now, with more concerted efforts underway. There's still such a acute problem in the parkway. I just heard from our parks director last week during a community meeting that we're pulling out 500 tons already out of the parkway this year. I mean, that's an amazing amount of debris and household garbage, needles and everything else that's coming out of the parkway, which I think underscores the fact that we ought to be looking at any available resources, whether it's through regional SAN or perhaps later with some cooperation from our reclamation districts, that should be all additive.
Yep.
Thanks.
I would just say, I don't recall whether it was, we substituted general fund in place until we received this money. So I think we can go ahead and vote on this today, but I'd like to get a copy of the staff report from that meeting. I don't know if anybody else would, so we can see what the plan was.
Well, absolutely, we can do that.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Cerna?
Yeah, just if the clerk can please read item 31.
Item 30.
Yeah.
Item 31 is the curb, gutter, and sidewalk replacement project, 2017, bids to be received on April 5th.
I just wanted to issue my public thanks to Mike Penrose and his staff for carefully considering parts of Supervisor Frost's district and the district I represent, notably the South Oak Park community, where this item will provide desperately needed resource and attention to fixing curb, gutter, sidewalk in an area that really needs it. So strong believer in giving thanks where it's due when we have an opportunity to do that. So I wanted to just take a moment and express that. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll vote on
your consent items 1 through 38, with the exception of 10 and 24.
So I would move the item, and just note that on item 5, we would give additional 6 months to the CEO.
It's noted.
Extend authority. Okay.
Please vote.
And unanimous vote.
Okay.
Item number 39, recognizing Mike Landy for 30 years of service.
Mr. Peterson?
Good morning, Chair Peters, members of the board. It is my pleasure to present to Mike Landy his 30-year certificate for service to the county. You can take your licks down there or up here. Actually, I'll be kind. So I'll just briefly, I don't know how you briefly go through 30 years, but I'll do my best. As Mr. Landy started with the county February 1988 as a temporary maintenance helper at the airport, which December of 1997 is when I started with the county at the airport.
Just made it to 30.
That's right. Moved to permanent highway maintenance worker transportation in August 1988. Spent a number of years in transportation, working his way up through senior highway maintenance worker, highway maintenance supervisor, establishing additional safety and hazmat training programs, first responder program, to have 24/7 hazmat first response set up in transportation department. And key to that was his experience back in 1988. He was a member of the response crew to the Carmichael tanker incident. In January 1997, he also was involved with staffing and organizing the county's hazmat collection site for the January 1997 flood events. Promoted to Highway Maintenance Supervisor 2 in the drainage maintenance section of transportation. Briefly went to water quality. Came back to transportation in 2001 as a provisional safety specialist. In that position, he moved over to the Human Resources Safety Office at Branch Center, established agency-wide hearing conservation program, and coordinated pedestrian safety improvement efforts at Branch Center. And in May 2005, we got him in water resources and came in as a senior safety specialist. was key to the construction of the Freeport and the Vineyard facilities, working with the contractors and staff to ensure that safety was considered thoroughly as the projects were being designed and constructed, and subsequently has been paramount in ensuring that safety procedures and programs are well established at both of those facilities. Much to the disruption of staff, sometimes safety gets in the way that you think of doing your day-to-day work, but it's fundamental, and it's always first and foremost in Mr. Landy's daily activities. For the number of certifications he's had over the years, I won't list them all because he probably has all of them that are available in terms of safety and hazardous materials. He was also, though, involved in a number of, say, non-safety related activities with the county. He actually was a facilitator with the planning for the community CPAC for the on behalf of the planning for Community Planning Advisory Council meetings. He was a facilitator. He facilitated the development of the Arden Arcade Community Action Plan. He was on the board of the Safety Center. He was Public Agency Safety Management Association board member, and he was named the Safety Professional of the Year in 2010 by Safety Center Incorporated. So I've known him for, well, not quite 30 years. We didn't realize we worked together at the airport. Safety has always been fundamental to Mr. Landy, and he's shared that, encouraged, coerced, whatever it took to ensure that everybody in the department carries that mantra as well. And ironically, you bailed me out of a situation, safety related. On a personal note, about 2008, it was right when the hands-free laws came into effect on cell phones. So I was driving home, Placer County Sheriff pulled me over because I hadn't quite adjusted to the new law. And I only did it once. We were talking, and he saw my county ID badge hanging on my belt. And he goes, "Oh, what do you work for? Water Resources. Do you know Mike Landy?" Well, yes, as a matter of fact, he works in my department.
Very close.
Well, I'll let you go. Be safe. Have a good day. Thank you for that. Because I'll tell you, my personal safety at home, let alone everybody on the road, would have been in jeopardy had that officer made a different choice. Anyhow, without any further ado, Mr. Landy, congratulations on 30 years of service with the county. We appreciate it very much. It's such an important aspect of what we do in the county for the benefit of employees, but also the residents and our customers. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. The microphone's yours.
Would you like to make any comments?
Say a few words.
Mike?
I'll simply thank Mr. Penrose, who was present much of my time at Transportation, and it's certainly been a pleasure to work with the board on various projects over the years through staff and all the support I've gotten through my various peers through my career. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Hope we get another 30 out of you.
For your next item, item 40, you are introducing ordinance amending various sections of chapters 4.26, 4.28, and 4.29 of the Sacramento County Code regarding bingo, waiving full reading and continuing to March 6th for adoption.
My notes say, are we going to have a presentation on this? Yes.
County Council is bringing this item. My office was asked to revise the ordinance so that the bingo games would be flexible. I'm not going to speak to how the funding decisions were made, but in removing the requirement for an audit fee, but allowing for this board the discretion to have an audit if a problem is arises. So if I could refresh how this ordinance came about, there was a time when bingo was problematic, so the county acted to put in place an auditing fee that came with a review of the process and a strict requirement and interpretation of the games. The game flexibility has been augmented by removing the requirement just that it be a live called game. I would just add that if the inclination is to remove this ordinance altogether, that would be more restrictive because the state penal code requires that if bingo is to occur, that it be enabled by a local ordinance. So by making the changes that we've made, as you see in the strike-through version, we've allowed the ability for bingo to proceed in this county. We've removed the fiscal restraints, though there are still business licensing requirements, and we think we've paired it up with the prior discussions of what this board's requests have been. If passed today, it will be then effective as of March 6th.
Okay. I don't see any questions from the board. We do have a speaker, Jim Tabucci.
Yes, good morning. Yes, my name is Jim Tabucci. I'm the Executive Director for the Sacramento Mandarins. First of all, I'd like to pass on regards from Jimmy Yee. He had a family emergency to take care of today, but he's been texting me endlessly during this, and if you know Jimmy, that's a really big deal for him to be texting, right? I just wanted to publicly go on record to say thank you to the board. Thank you for listening to the concerns that we had, and also thank you for allowing us to be the voice for all of the children that we serve. I've spoken with the Optimist Club and others who are providing for the children of the community, and this change in the ordinance will greatly enhance our ability to serve those kids in the community. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, there's any other questions or comments of the board? Is there a motion?
Second.
Please vote.
And the motion passes with Supervisor Peters absent.
Mr. County Executive, can we take item 24 now, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Item 24, authorize the execution of a retroactive agreement with Hardesty Excavating for repair work completed at Consumnes River Preserve.
Okay. Unless there's any questions, I'd move the item.
Did you have a question?
No, I said unless there's any questions, I'll move the item.
Oh,
so yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Second, please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay, back to the regular order.
Okay, so for item 41, it's the 2017 Sacramento Promise Zone update.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Blow you 3 minutes early.
It's a 10 o'clock item. It's 9:57.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for catching that. We'll need to take a recess
Do you
for
want to
3
take
minutes.
our
Nominations.
nominations?
Hold on, Tyrone. We're gonna
Hold on.
You can be seated, Mr. Williams.
Please give us a-
Can we,
What item is that?
for your nominations,
47.
47. And if you'll have to give me 1 second, I apologize. Okay, for your matters today, we have the Adult and Aging Commission.
Please continue to April 10th.
Arden Arcade Community Planning Advisory Council.
I'd like to nominate Colin Suarez and continue the remainder to March 6th.
And then we have the Cordova Community Planning Advisory Council.
Continue to March 20th, please.
Okay. Next, Disability Advisory Commission.
Please continue to April 10th.
The Equal Employment Opportunity Advisory Committee.
Chiefs recommend reappointing Inderjit Kalarai and continue the remainder to April 10th, and my apologies if I mispronounced that name.
And next is the Human Services Coordinating Council.
Chiefs recommend reappointing Robert Silva Jr. and continue the remainder to April 10th.
Law Library Board of Trustees.
Reappoint June Coleman.
And North Highlands Foothill Farms Community Planning Advisory Council.
Move to April 10th.
Okay. Orangeville Community Planning Advisory Council.
Continue to March 6th.
Public Health Advisory Board.
Nominate Christina Slee and Kathleen Wright as community member seats and continue the remainder to March 6th.
Okay. Rio Linda Alberta Community Planning Advisory Council.
Continue to March 20, please.
I have April 10th. Is that?
I have April
One.
10th.
I had an initial
We can do separate dates.
notice, and then I had a second notice that updated it.
Okay, so District 1 wants
April 10th, please.
April 10th, and District 4, March.
Well, I can just go April 10th. It's
Okay.
That's fine.
All right.
So that's
Next.
to the 10th. Sacramento County Mental Health Board.
Please continue to April 10th.
Okay, I see District 1 and 2 want it to April 10th. District 4, you included in
Is
that?
reappoint Kendra Montgomery Block.
Okay. And District 2, you're okay with continuing?
Yes.
that? Okay. Sacramento Environmental Commission.
Continue to March 20th.
And South Sacramento Area Community Planning Advisory Council.
Continue to March 20th. Okay with you, Supervisor Kennedy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that concludes your nominations.
Okay, now we're back at 10:01. We'll back up to 41.
Correct. 2017 Sacramento Promise Zone update.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Tyrone Roderick Williams, Director of Development at the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency, and also Director of the Sacramento Promise Zone. I'm here today to provide you with an update on the activities that occurred within the Promise Zone in 2017. Following my PowerPoint presentation, we have Kim Riccolo from SMUD, who is one of our partners, who will be joining me at the podium. And following that, we have a short video of one of the programs that was held in partnership with the Sacramento Promise Zone. We received the Promise Zone designation in April of 2015. The Promise Zone did not come with any automatic funding, but what it did provide was 5 AmeriCorps Vista members to provide assistance in carrying out the work of the Promise Zone and a federal liaison. I think for the first time before you today, we have our Promise Zone team. I'd like to recognize and acknowledge them. Julius Austin, the Promise Zone coordinator, could you please stand? Ken Darkle, a Vista leader from Houston. Alicia Gomes from Boston. Alphonse Wilfred, Boston. Angela Cowell, Sacramento, and Yi Cowell, Sacramento. These are our AmeriCorps Vista members and coordinator, and they are the right and left hand of the work that goes on within the Promise Zone.
To those from out of state, welcome to Sacramento, and locals, thank you. Thank you for your work.
The Sacramento Promise Zone currently has a population of approximately 127,000 residents, a poverty rate of about 34%. One of the most disturbing statistics is that currently about only 37% of third graders are reading at grade level, and the life expectancy for residents within the Promise Zone is less than residents outside the Promise Zone. Our promise zone includes areas of the city and the county. We have over 60 partners in the government agencies, financial institutions, jobs, education, health, and sustainability, and economic development. I'd like to go over with you just some accomplishments of this last year. One of the things that I mentioned about the Promise Zone is that it provided a federal liaison to help us navigate the federal agencies in Washington. The goal of the Promise Zone is to help build cross-sector collaborations between different federal agencies. We were able to, with the change of administration, still maintain a focus on the radar screen at HUD. And Matthew Hunter, who was is the Assistant Deputy Secretary of HUD, under the new administration, visited the Sacramento Promise Zone as his first visit to any of the Promise Zones. So he oversees all of the urban Promise Zones in the country. In addition to that, the Sacramento Promise Zone is a part of the National Coalition of Promise Zones. There are 22 cities across the country, and we gathered together in Washington last November to advocate for the continuation of the Promise Zones. We were successful, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We've also been at the forefront of identifying additional resources to bring to the Promise Zone, and we hosted the Transformative Climate Communities team at the Twin Rivers Public Housing Community, which is owned by the county. Unfortunately, we were not successful in receiving our request for that $35 million grant, but we are still in the running for additional resources as well. In addition to that, we have numerous partners who engaged in jobs and jobs creation. One of those partners is Grid Alternatives. It was funded through a first-of-its-kind collaboration where we have lenders who are working within the Promise Zone, pooling their resources to fund organizations that have significant impact. And while Grid Alternatives is clearly a Promise Zone partner, they're doing work throughout the county. And at this point, they have, in the last year, through their work, have placed over 34 youth in careers related to solar energy. In addition to that, we're working with Jobs Plus, which is another federal program that we received funding for, targeting public housing residents, providing job training and job placement as well. For the first time last year, we partnered with our national partners, the National Society of Black Engineers, Women Engineers, and Professional Hispanic Engineers to launch the Seek STEM Summer Camp. There'll be a brief video at the conclusion to talk about the accomplishments of that summer camp and its impact. Additionally, as we look out and try to address the issues of homelessness, both in the city and in the county, we were successful in being selected in one of 6 cities to receive the Performance Partnerships Pilot for Disconnected Youth Grant. We've been meeting with over a year now, and this spring we will be having the official launch of the program, but it's a pilot program targeting disconnected youth who are homeless, at risk of being homeless, aging out of foster care, or on probation. Another one of our efforts is really involved in supporting the work of health and wellness. With the assistance of Supervisor Cerna, we were able to establish a new clinic at Alder Grove Marina Vista, and last year, Elica Health Centers joined us in operating the Stephen M. Thompson Community Clinic. And thank you, sir, for your efforts. In addition to that clinic, we're also working with Samuel Merritt University and the Community Nurse Corps. They are providing nurses who are working in the hospitals through Kaiser Permanente, and they're being placed in the community to provide health care services to community residents. And to date, over 60 residents have benefited from just the Community Nurse Corps alone at Twin Rivers. SMUD has been one of our greatest corporate partners. In just a few minutes, we will have Kim come up and talk about the great work that SMUD has done, not only in the Promise Zone, but really throughout the region. Another aspect of the Promise Zone is supporting small businesses in our neighborhoods. Through a grant from the Economic Development Administration, we were able to launch small business success forums throughout the community, and as a result of those, provided information to small businesses to understanding how they can remain profitable, how they can expand their operations, and how we could attract new businesses to our core business districts. We're working with the Crocker and other art and cultural organizations in expanding, bringing art from the Crocker into the neighborhoods. Through the Block by Block Arts in the Zone initiative, Crocker is having 7 locations throughout the Promise Zone where they will be having art and artistic expression. We met in DC with the Institute for Museum and Library Services, and as a result of that, funding came to the Promise Zone. We're pleased with that. In addition to that, from our education partners, we are partnering with Sacramento Community College in bringing classes from the campus onto our public housing sites as a way of introducing residents to the opportunities of community college and encouraging them and our students to see community college as a viable option. We're also partnering with Sacramento's City Unified District in the Y Plan, partnering with Berkeley, where students are identifying issues that impact students and identifying solutions for those challenges. We have some new opportunities on the horizon. One is through the Department of Education at the federal level. They've selected the California 4 Promise Zones for their California Infinity Group. What that means is every 2 weeks we're on the line with representatives directly at the Department of Education, being able to benefit from the new initiatives that they have launched and also making them aware of opportunities here in California. We've been selected as one of 4 Promise Zone cities for which there's currently being a best practice summary of the work that we're doing. A new opportunity that came out of our visit and our work through the National Coalition of Promise Zones is a new entity called Opportunity Zones. It's a part of the new tax code in which opportunity zones are areas in which you target private investment. It is based on the new market tax credit formula, which is a very complicated tax code currently. In Sacramento, we don't have any new market tax credit projects. However, this is a new tool that will be available to attract resources. And it is also an opportunity to expand the zones within the county to be eligible for this opportunity. Additionally, the California Senate Bill 635 seeks to recognize Promise Zones throughout all of the state agencies that are providing funding and giving Promise Zones preference points as they consider funding. The last is the Voters' Choice Act Coalition, which we are a part of, and that's getting the word out about the new voting procedures and processes and locations. At this time, I'd like to welcome Kim Kikero to the podium. She's the Manager and Special Assistance Delivery for Retail Products and Services at SMUD. Following her, we will have our brief video presentation on the STEM project.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you this morning, and thank you, Tyrone, for inviting me as well. So as he indicated, I'm the Manager of Special Assistance Delivery, which is over our rate assistance programs and our dwelling assistance programs for our low-income population. So the partnership with SHRA is very important to us. One of the things that we've looked at over the last couple of years is really investing in our underserved population and really trying to break that cycle of poverty, which is what even Tyrone mentioned in his presentation. So what we're looking at is improving the housing stock across Sacramento County. One of our focuses has been in the Promise Zone. In 2016, we actually did a special event in that area to welcome customers in to learn about some new programs that we had that are helping to kind of get to all of our underserved populations. We did well in the single-family homes, but not so well in the multifamily homes, because you have the tenants that we're serving, and then we have the owners, which SHRA has a partnership with, so of course that ties us directly with them. Most recently, this last year, we've been working closely with SHRA to try to further develop that multifamily program so that we can get to more of our underserved population. Our board recently approved an additional $10 million to our budget that we already had to reinvest and really invest in that housing stock, like I said before. And this is across the community. We're doing more than we've ever done in trying to connect with our low-income community, and to Tyrone's point, really help those underserved and break those cycles, the reading, the health benefits, everything that we have learned with that, with trying to help there. I mean, we're doing full HVAC and heating replacements where we've never done that before, and that's a pretty healthy investment, and you can imagine the responses that our customers are coming back to us with. Just to give you some high levels, and then I'll turn it back to Tyrone. In 2016, we were able to touch almost 2,900 of our low-income population. That's like 2,900, how much is that? Well, we have about 90,000 customers that are currently participating. Now, there's more than that probably could participate, so that was a pretty big jump for us. Normally, we do about 800 or 1,000. In 17, we managed to get about 3,500 customers added on to that, and we're hoping to do anywhere from 3,700 to 4,000 customers this year. Not only are we doing that this year, we also have just recently connected with a contractor to help us partner with PG&E and of course ourselves and go into modular homes, which I don't know if you know, mobile homes and those districts are mostly low-income customers, and we're going to target them and go out. So we're hoping to hit maybe 5,000 to 6,000 more. So we're pretty excited. So we're hoping to further our partnership with SHRA to just again go deeper and wider than we ever have with these investments and really helping our underserved population. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the work the SMUD's doing here. Is there, maybe you could take back to whomever you work with, a thought that many of these low-income communities don't have any street lights. And it's pretty pervasive throughout the unincorporated area of Sacramento County. And I know it's very expensive, but it would surely be helpful to the safety, health and safety of the people who live in the Promise Zones and other zones around it that may not quite have qualified for this. So maybe your committee could take that up.
I will definitely take it back. Be glad to.
And we have a couple other questions.
Sure.
Supervisor Frost?
I too appreciate what you're doing, and in my district I've been approached by folks in the mobile home parks and also the senior citizens who have told me that there's a forgotten group. They call them the forgotten seniors on the streets, and those are the seniors who do not qualify income-wise for the housing assistance. They make just above that, but they're just old enough that they're paying extra for medications, and they are living in a studio apartment, and their cost of rent and utilities and everything is going up, and it's basically pricing them out of their home. So I'm really excited that you're reaching out to that. It sounds like you're reaching out to that group countywide.
Absolutely countywide. The multifamily, again, that apartments is a perfect example. We've never really had what we call a bundle or energy efficiency measures other than behavior measures that we could offer them. We've kind of come up with some unique things that we can do for them. For example, we offer them, it's kind of on the pricey side, but it's worth it. It's a Dyson fan. It's a small, I don't know if you've seen them, they're small, they don't have blades, so they're super safe, but they can take them from room to room. And that at least gives them some control, right, for their heating, or excuse me, their air conditioning, so that they can feel cooler in the summertime and maybe not have their AC quite as low. And we're doing other things as well. And we definitely reach out to our senior community. We actually have an outreach group that works with them directly as well. So yeah, we're definitely going a lot different than what we have in the past and trying to get, again, if we can help with the housing stock, we can help overall in Sacramento County, and not just for today, long term. Our rate assistance program gives them a discount on their bill every month, but does that really help them long term, right? We're hoping to lower that bill and provide the discount for even further.
Is there a way that you can email us a flyer or a promotion? Is there a way that we can help you promote that when we're out in the community or when people are coming to us, that you can email us some information?
Absolutely.
I'm going to be having community meetings this month, and I would like to share that in some of my communities. Thanks.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Supervisor Kennedy?
Yeah, first I want to echo the chair's comment regarding lighting. We've got a program that we're doing through CDBG down in South Sacramento that is going to just make the neighborhood so much safer, and those are throughout, particularly our lower income areas, many of which are in the Promise Zone. The other issue, and this is more of a comment, I want to thank SMUD we're working together right now on some areas in South Sacramento where there are actually SMUD properties and substations in which there's not adequate infrastructure, some of which are in the Promise Zone actually, that, for safe routes to schools, kids are having to, walk in busy streets and intersections because there is no infrastructure there, and you're not legally required to because of the way we fund infrastructure projects.
Right.
But SMUD has stepped up, and we are working together. We haven't done it yet. That's why I'm mentioning this, so that you can go back.
I will bring it back, yes.
Encouraged to keep working with us on these things. So thank you for being a good corporate citizen.
You bet.
Thank you.
Bet. Thank you.
One of the goals of the Promise Zone is to develop a STEM pipeline in Sacramento. STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. A pipeline that will start in elementary school, move to middle school, high school, college, and beyond. And we've been working with our universities and both of our school districts in the Promise Zone to help develop that. One of the first new programs that we were able to bring to the Promise Zone is called the SEEK program. It's a partnership with the National Society of Black Engineers, Women Engineers, and Professional Hispanic Engineers. We launched that program last summer. We're currently working on providing the resources to move that program again this summer. I'd like for you all to take a look at the brief video highlighting the program.
Okay, thank you.
SEEK is a 3-week program for elementary students where we teach basic engineering concepts. And the real exciting part about it, every Friday is a competition day where all the different grades get to compete within their grade and basically showcase all that they learned throughout the week. Everybody!
SEEK is a partnership between the National Society of Black Engineers, the Sacramento Promise Zone, the Twin Rivers and Sacramento City Unified School Districts, and corporate partners like SMUD. The program focuses on STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math content. It's through programs like SEEK that we're continuing our work to partner with community groups to educate kids who may not otherwise have those opportunities in the past. And while we may be training the SMUD workforce of the future and priming our pipeline, it's not just about us. We are truly helping to introduce these kids to a whole new world of possibilities.
I'm so appreciative of SMUD, and I'm so appreciative of the other partners that see as their goal and their mission educating and training young people, because you're training the future SMUD workforce.
I want to be a nuclear engineer. I want to work with chemicals like a scientist.
We want to make engineering a mainstream word. We want minority students to see themselves as engineers and know what engineering is. There's a vast world of different engineering disciplines, and SEEK for us is really the pipeline, the beginning of this exploration about what's possible for students.
first day I came to pick him up, I walked in, looked in the class, and he's working on a MacBook Air. I'm like, Jordan, what were you guys doing on the MacBook Air? He goes, Dad, we were learning about coding.
This year in Sacramento, they studied the glider, they did coding, and they did the gravity cruiser. So it's hands-on, it's trial and error, it's building something, it's failing, it's figuring out why it failed, putting it back together.
The complicated part of building a gravity cruiser is to make it go a certain speed, because if it goes too fast, it'll flip over, and if it goes too slow, it will just stop.
They use as their teachers what we call our college mentors. So they are looking at college students across the country who are engaged in science, math, engineering, technology, and teaching, and provide summer internship opportunities for those students to be the leaders and the teachers in the class. And so it turned out throughout the camp that about 85% of the students who are mentors come from the Sacramento region or are attending Sacramento colleges. That is unique. No other city that has a Seek camp has expressed and exhibited that commitment to its local college students. So our students who are generally from underrepresented communities see individuals who look like them, who they can relate to.
I'm happy because they're happy, because they built it. And when they see their product go 6 or 8 feet down the track, it's like, wow, we did that. We built this toy. We engineered this toy. Not that we built it, but we engineered it.
My passion with working with these kids in Seek would be definitely just open the minds of these young people and just let them know, like, the world, there is no limit. They are the engineers. Engineers are people who create solutions, and they have the power to do that themselves.
I promise you they will never forget this 3-week-long process. They made presentations that sometimes adults can't even do, and speak about engineering concepts and different topics and use the vocabulary words that they've learned all within a week.
And so I'm hoping that with all the things he's learning through the SEEK program, even if it's not in engineering, he's going to know that he's capable of more.
Knowledge is power. That's something that can never be taken away from you. That's what I learned, is that it's power, and they can't erase it from your mind.
That concludes my presentation for the SEEK 2017 review. I'm available, and our team is available for any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Cerna?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, Tyrone, for the presentation, and I want to extend my thanks to the AmeriCorps folks behind you and everyone else that's been responsible for making the Promise Zone initiative such a success thus far. I did have a question about the National Coalition of Promise Zones, which I guess is a group of other jurisdictions across the country that are as fortunate as us to have a Promise Zone in our community. There's mention in the board letter about a convening in Washington, D.C., I guess it was last October. And I wonder if is that a one-off, or is there an ongoing intent to convene or to otherwise build an ongoing relationship with other communities across the country that have a similar opportunity with Promise Zones, so that we can share ideas and understand what's working, and perhaps how best to overcome some of the challenges involved with maximizing the potential that comes with being a Promise Zone designee?
That was our first national convening. We're in the process now of planning a second. But in addition to the in-person convening, approximately every 2 weeks, there is a call where all 22 cities can be online. In fact, there's one today at 11 o'clock. And so we are in constant communication. There's also a subcommittee or subgroup of those cities who are working on the details of opportunity zones. So this is something that will continue for years to come, and all of us see the value and the importance of communicating and sharing information.
That's good to know. That was something that obviously caught my attention, and it seems to me that It's always best when you have an opportunity to work with others that have a similar circumstance, in this case a very positive one, to do what we can to learn from others. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Natoli.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. One, I just want to say I had the opportunity a couple months ago when Matthew Hunter visited along with some other officials and met our VISTA volunteers and certainly some of the folks who have been working on this, and I was very impressed, obviously, with the program that had been put together to present to our guests at that time. And I know that, again, Tyrone, I think, reflected that in his presentation this morning. I just wanted to ask about the opportunity zones, because as I understand it, that certain areas have to be nominated by the governor in order to be, I guess, open to the investment opportunities that would exist here. So, and that would occur, I guess, about this time next month, or by the end of next month. Are we then in the loop to have our area nominated? And if so, then what would you anticipate might be the follow-on? Obviously, there are a number of steps, and this is, I guess, new in the tax law that was chaptered just before the end of the calendar year last year. So I'm just kind of curious as to what the process would be for us maybe taking advantage of some of that investment capital to come into the Promise Zone.
Well, we've been working with not only the National Coalition of Promise Zones, but Holland and Knight, the Enterprise Foundation, and LISC. Every week there are conversations and phone calls and additional information being presented. We've also been in contact with the California Department of Housing and Community Development. They, along with the State Finance Department and the Governor's Office, are all aware. In fact, we met with HCD last week. To answer your question, to get to the point, yes, there is an opportunity to expand. There's a balancing act between all of the Promise Zones are already, all of the census tracts in Promise Zones are already included. What we have the opportunity to do is to expand beyond that. What each one of us are unclear about is the degree to which that expansion can take place. So our position will be that we will submit additional census tracts for consideration. In the end, it is the State Finance Department that will make those final decisions, because, first of all, only 25 opportunity zones are allowed per state. And we're safe because we're a Promise Zone for sure.
Okay, so Promise Zone, by being a Promise Zone, you're covered already.
We're covered. Okay. But what we want to do is to be able to expand that opportunity. We've heard, since we got our designation, about the need to look at expanding county. There have also been discussions with the city about expanding those. And so we are actually at 1 o'clock having a meeting regarding opportunity zones and how we will proceed with proposing new census tracts. We have a mapping tool that's been provided, and so we can look at every census tract and determine how it would qualify, or if it would qualify. It still needs to be contiguous. That was one of the issues regarding creating the map of the Promise Zone. And so to the degree that we can expand, particularly south, and if there's opportunity to move forward north, we're going to be exploring that and presenting that opportunity for consideration.
Okay, just one other question, and I appreciate the brief response. What about former military bases then with McClellan? I don't know if McClellan's got in a portion of McClellan with the current Promise Zone, or at least neighborhoods surrounding there, but I think about Mather and the Army Depot both, and are portions of those, and or does that give you some additional, again, some of those aren't as populated as relates to, head count, but there are opportunities for certainly not just jobs, but housing and, mixed uses components. And so does the opportunity zone allow you, is there any advantage to having a former military installation, which we have 3 of, into consideration, or do you know that detail at all? Maybe not, Tyrone. I'm just curious.
At this point, we're waiting for the Treasury, the U.S. Treasury Department, to come out with the details. However, the goal of opportunity zones is to target private sector investment. And to the degree we can identify areas that comply from a census tract standpoint, we definitely would want to consider those being included.
Okay, and it just occurs to me, and I see Leo McFarland in the audience this morning, obviously with VOA out at Mather and elsewhere in this community, and I think about what we have at the Mather Community Campus, certainly the Veterans Village. Again, SHRA has been a very strong partner and with regards to the VASH, the vouchers, and I just I've had conversations with the county executive in recent weeks and representatives from Rancho Cordova relative to maybe some other housing opportunities there that would either allow us to reinvest in some of the existing housing and certainly supports the campus itself, but the opportunities for veterans and maybe others as well within the existing complex out there. And so I guess I'm just curious if we can maybe some information coming back about that, what the opportunities, and I assume they may exist at McClellan and maybe at the Army Depot as well. But it just occurred to me that if there's an opportunity to seek that out, then we ought to at least consider it. So
we will explore that, and we will report back on our abilities to include the Army bases in Mather based on the mapping tool that we have.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. No further questions. This is a receive and file. Thank you all for coming to visit.
Great.
Next item, please.
Okay, for item 42, this is the North Parkland Homes Vesting Tentative Subdivision Map Time Extension, a 5-year extension for a vesting tentative subdivision map to divide approximately 29 acres into 124 single-family lots, a wetland preserve, a park, and 2 landscape lots for a property located on the south side of Florin Road in the Vineyard community. The applicants are Randall and Lori Grimsman. The environmental document is a prior mitigated negative declaration.
Good morning, members of the board. Leanne Moffett, your planning director, and I do have a PowerPoint on this item. All right, so the item, as indicated, is located on the south side of Florin Road, west of Bradshaw, in the North Vineyard Station specific plan, and it is a request for a 5-year time extension of a map and associated entitlements. With regard to background, back in January of 2007, your board approved a rezone, a vesting tentative subdivision map, a special development permit, use permit, exception, and affordable housing plan. The rezone is in effect, but the vesting map and other associated entitlements are what are before you today. The applicant in January of 2017 initiated this time extension request. The Vineyard Community Planning Advisory Council considered this in March of 2017, and they did recommend denial expressly with concerns about the number of lots and the density of the project. The applicant considered those comments, and in October of 2017, they made revisions to the map to drop 20 of the lots out of the project and to reduce the overall density in reaction to the CPAC comments. And in order to avail themselves of the current affordable housing ordinance and to fee out rather than constructing affordable housing and half-plex lots on the site. As a result of that, planning staff approved that revised version of the map through a substantial compliance process, knowing that this map would come before the board as part of the time extension process. In January of 2018, the Planning Commission considered this and recommended approval to the board. And backing up slightly, I do want to note we did inform the Vineyard CPAC of the changed map via email. We have been out there a couple times, and they did not request to rehear the map, so we are confident that the change to the map addressed their density concerns. So this graphic right here shows the original map on the left, and we've outlined those original half-plex lots in little red squares there. So those half-plex lots were essentially consolidated into single-family homes, and all the lots got slightly larger, and everything was kind of redistributed using essentially the same street pattern, although there was a small cul-de-sac that was eliminated. And so the revised map is what is being requested for the time extension on the right. And here's a larger graphic of that current version of the map. So that this is a 29-acre site. They're requesting to divide it into 124 single-family lots. Along the eastern edge, there is a wetland preserve. At the northeast corner, there is a park site. And then along Waterman on the western edge, there are 2 landscape lots. This is a project vicinity map. And the key points are that without the further action, the subdivision map would have expired on January 31st. They are requesting the 5-year time extension. I already covered the CPAC process and the substantial compliance process. So the project will now meet the current affordable housing requirement by paying in lieu fees at the time of building permit issuance, and the Planning Commission is recommending approval. And the staff recommendations are in your report.
Questions? Mr. Natoli?
If you don't have any speakers, I'm prepared to.
Oh, I thought you said Ms. Peters, not speakers.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions.
Okay, sure.
If you could go back to your maps there, I'm squinting and can read the small numbers here, but just visually looking at the 2 maps next to each other, the new map looks like the lots are smaller. Maybe it's just my eyes. I don't know.
They reduced it by 20 lots, so they are not smaller.
Huh. Okay. And would the duplexes have met the affordable housing requirement?
Yeah, the original, the ordinance in effect at the time in 2007 was because the project was over 100 units, they were not allowed to fee out. They had to include the affordable units on site. And so the reason some of the lots look larger is because there was going to be 2 homes on the lot. There was going to be a half-plex unit on the lot.
Okay.
Okay, so you're right. The lots were bigger, but there were 2 houses on the lot instead of 1 house. So now that's kind of distributed out, and there's only 1 house on each lot. So in reaction to the current version of the ordinance where they can fee out, they are choosing to do that rather than to include affordable homes on site in half-plex.
So duplexes are still considered affordable housing?
No, they would have been under that version of the affordable housing plan, they would have been a deed-restricted low-income housing for sale.
Okay. Personally, I like the idea of duplexes scattered throughout a map. The area I live in has duplexes, and it works out great, and you get built product. I'm disappointed to see that. I'll support it if Don's in favor of it, but I'm disappointed in it myself. Okay.
All right.
So those are all my questions.
I don't have any question. I don't know if there's is there an applicant here that wants to speak?
I don't have any requests to speak.
Okay. All right. Certainly noting comments of the chair. I know that we had worked with the applicant after the CPAC first review almost a year ago now. And I think in light of obviously the change in our ordinance relative to allowing them to fee out, that was a better choice in their view to do. And under the previous ordinances, Leanne said they weren't allowed to do that. So I think the map addresses obviously the CPAC concerns and reflects the desire by the applicant to pay the fee versus build the units. So I'm prepared to move the staff recommendation. I'm going to do that.
First and second by Mr. Cerna. Mr. Kennedy. Cerna, please vote.
Unanimous vote. Item 43 is the workshop on senior and adult safety net initiatives and proposed work plan.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Ruth McKenzie, who's our division manager for Senior Protective Services, will be providing this report. As you recall, we had some discussion during the budget and even last spring about what are the initiatives that the county is undertaking on senior and adult safety. And Ruth and her team have been working diligently and through most of 17, and they're ready to make a presentation to you. Our purpose today is to give you some background and some information on what kind of services we provide and garner some input from board members if there's gaps or any other items that you want us to consider in the future. So with that, Ruth, could you do the presentation?
Madam Chair, could I just note, though, one important key piece here, our Adult and Aging Commission has also been very integrated into this whole conversation.
They are. I was going to let Ruth do that.
Oh, she's going to announce. I just want to make sure that work has included them. So, in addition to obviously Ruth and staff's work, I mean, this.
No, absolutely. I was deferring to Ruth because she did the initiative on that. I don't want.
Well, they're here in the audience, so I want to make sure.
I don't want to steal her thunder.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Gill, for this opportunity, and thank you also to Dr. Heller. I also want to thank the Adult and Aging Commission for their review and feedback. They'll be presenting immediately after me. The purpose of this portion of the presentation is to focus on the county efforts being expended toward protecting older persons. This is not a comprehensive overview of all the activities in the community to help seniors thrive. Within this context, I will focus on the activities of Adult Protective Services. First off, Adult Protective Services is mandated to investigate allegations of abuse and neglect against older persons. The services they provide are typically restricted to less than 90 days. The primary function is to investigate. A secondary function is to provide supportive services for up to 90 days, but we do try to keep it within 30. We're different from Child Protective Services in that at Child Protective Services, there's an authority to remove a person who has been harmed or is at risk of harm. Adult Protective Services can't do that. They can't go in and say, oh, you're in this horrible situation, I better take you from your home without your permission and then put you somewhere. There are no places to put older people who have been harmed or abused, with the exception of the 6-bed senior safe house operated by Volunteers of America. So when we encounter people that have been harmed, we are left to our own devices for figuring out alternate safety plans and safe places for people to go. This slide is to discuss what we know. Specifically, what we know is that the demand for services outpaces our capacity to provide them. We cope by using technology in a myriad of different ways. We also focus our efforts on mandates. We like to ensure that there are tangible reasons to keep cases open. Unfortunately, we're not able to keep cases open simply because a person is lonely or might eventually be harmed at a nebulous point in the future. We identify recidivism factors, and we try to shore up clients with services we know can help attend to those kind of reasons that would lead a client to be referred back immediately to us. When we look at recidivism, we're asking, of all the calls we get, how many will get a second call within 30 days or within a year? About half of all the telephone calls APS receives will result in an actual in-person investigation. The number of investigations has risen more than 130% since 2010, so it's more than doubled. We know some approaches are more effective than others for working directly with clients. For instance, we know that the Financial Abuse Specialized Unit has been very effective in this community. We know that in the last 2 years, this specialized unit has confirmed more than $17 million in financial abuse losses to seniors in Sacramento County. In addition, more importantly, because of Adult Protective Services intervention, over $16 million in pensions, investments, real estate, and other assets have been protected. We've been able to stop it from being stolen, and it wouldn't have happened without the specialization that's offered at Adult Protective Services.
Could you pause for just a minute? There are a couple questions here. Mr. Kennedy? Oh, sorry, no. Yeah, but since I already made a mistake, I was going to let you go ahead and speak.
I guess that first bullet, 130% more investigations since 2010, that doesn't mean that there's that much more happening. Isn't that more likely because we have increased our resources and we're actually finding?
We've increased resources, and there's more knowledge about abuse happening in the community, but there's also more people in the catchment area. There are simply more seniors living in our community.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You don't want to talk anymore? Okay. All right. Mr. Antoli?
Ruth, I was going to just back to that same point, but I wanted to ask a little more information about. So the 130% reflects, as is in the report we have, basically increased from about 2,400 to almost 5,600 investigations. But what I heard you say a moment ago is that about 50% of the phone calls result in investigations. So that means you're taking about 11,000.
That's exactly correct.
On your intake, on your calls.
Yes.
And then how is the determination made via the phone as to whether that trigger? Obviously, you must have some template for that, what would trigger an investigation. But could you just take a moment and kind of use an example?
Yes. Specifically, we're looking for a concrete allegation of abuse or neglect. Another criteria for investigation is simply age. Are they 65 or older, or are they a person who's considered to be a dependent adult? That is, someone who can't otherwise advocate for their needs as a result of a disability.
So then, based upon the information from the call, and you can also accept third-party calls where somebody sees a neighbor who may have a in-home party, whether they're a family relationship or not. They may have some reason to believe that there's some sort of neglect going on or some sort of other issues. So you take those are, I assume, are a subset of the calls you receive, right, for people that are concerned parties. So once you do the investigation, though, and I think it was, pretty much a evident point that, people that are alone, who may, again, be vulnerable, but may not be in that very instance be subject to any abuse or neglect. How is it that you connect folks? Because, again, somebody initiated a call. Maybe they initiated a call themselves, and you determined via the investigation, however that was conducted, that the person isn't necessarily immediately subject to any abuse that would warrant further action, but they remain vulnerable. And so, and I guess what a concern I heard is, and I think it's certainly a point for discussion as we hear to the rest of the presentation this morning, is that, well, what happens next? Because you're not able to keep the case open. That concerns me, is that obviously there can be levels of priority here, but you've identified, obviously via call, it may not have pointed anything out, but you're not, then at that point you close the case. And so unless somebody reinitiates, we don't have any further follow-on to a party who, again, may be vulnerable, and that resulted in the initial call. So just walk through that a little bit. So again, so I can have an understanding about what it might take from a resource standpoint as we talk about this, but also from a practical standpoint.
So as a practitioner, I would go into the field and I would say, did this abuse happen or not happen? And I'd hear from the different parties, and I would determine, no, it didn't actually happen the way that it was reported. I still see that there's a need, and I'm concerned. I see that there's not much food in the home. I see that the home is maybe a little bit dilapidated. I see this person is no longer driving and has health care issues. So some of the things that I'll do is I'll take an inventory of their resources as well as their gaps. And after that initial investigation happens, we use those additional days to try to bring additional resources in. So one of the things that we can do is we can send a public health nurse out to help connect a person to healthcare services. We can also immediately bring food. We can notify them as to what the services are around food and nutritional services in our community, including Meals on Wheels and that type of thing. We can hook them up for secondary services, like if they have ongoing mental health needs, we might refer them to their healthcare provider for treatment. We might also refer them to our county system of care. In addition, we might connect them to, we've got the retired senior volunteer program that has the senior companion program. So people who are willing, we might say, hey, would you be willing to have somebody come and visit you in your home that way? Pretty much we have to simply go through our Rolodex in our minds of what exists in our community and what is something that somebody might benefit from, and then we offer it to them. The other tenet of adult protective services, and this is statewide as well as national, is that services are received in a voluntary basis. That is, people have to want to have them. We don't thrust things on people against their will. So when we say, here's 10 different services that you might benefit from, many times a client will say, no, I don't need anything. Or they'll say, well, I'll take this, but not that. So they might not take the thing that they need most.
Okay, just so one follow-on question then. So, but you got this 30 days, that's 20 working days. Mm-hmm. You're managing large caseloads, and you make that initial contact, you go through and do that, and I know we have some very capable people out there in the field. But after 30 days, we do no additional follow-up. So 6 months out, we don't go back and do a courtesy call or a check-in unless there was some, I know caseworkers are pretty good about, they may have a hunch about something, but basically that file is officially closed, and whether that person accepted services or not, and if they did, then they're connected with the system. But I guess I'm kind of looking to folks who think they're okay enough now and they're still just holding on, but then 6 months from now, maybe they're not. And so I guess what I would want to know as we conclude this is that, what would be optimum, again, you don't necessarily run a case for, the remaining portion of that person's life. You might in the case of something that's more serious, but, what it would take to have follow-on, say, come back in a 3-month period or a 6-month period to do that, the touchback that I think would be very, very important, in addition to kind of this soft handoff that we make. And again, if it's critical, you're going to, call somebody in, you'll call law enforcement in, you'll call, medical practitioners in, you'll, have the person, removed from the home if they're, in jeopardy immediately. But it's this kind of progressive nature. And I guess the point I want to make for right now is that I think that as we see people that want to remain independent, that fight for that independence, and may have a supportive situation or not, that as people age in place, that we have some ability, not just to keep them in a system, but to make sure that, we can do something where something is alerted, something call it to our attention. And doesn't always mean it's something that's severe, but in a lot of cases that's an early warning sign. And so I guess what I would like to see is to have a system, I guess, and I want to hear from folks that would allow us to then have a little more progression of at least touchback with folks and to help them remain healthy and in place before something very, very serious would occur. And again, not that people aren't doing their job, but I don't know, what's the size of the caseload that people carry now?
Cases, they're investigating 19 new cases per month.
19
typically.
New cases per month?
19 new cases per month per worker.
So you're doing 230 cases a year?
A little bit more than that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, thanks.
Okay, go on with your presentation.
Okay, thank you. I think Mr. Natoli has actually made quite a bit of my presentation
for me. I wasn't reading ahead, sorry.
You've blown my punchline.
That's why you went to Supervisor
right.
Kennedy first, because you knew. Sorry.
In consulting with our stakeholders and reviewing what it is that we know that the needs of older persons aren't met by any single entity, whether that's healthcare, law enforcement, human assistance, ministries, housing, or protective services. It's impossible to take care of everything that everybody needs. In addition, what we've also learned is, I know, because I previously worked in homeless programs, I know how broad and deep the community's efforts toward dealing with issues of homelessness are. And I want to point out that there are only 22 beds for chronically homeless senior citizens. There are only 6 beds of emergency shelter for older homeless persons. That's it in our whole community. Another thing is that older persons desire transportation services that mirror how they previously used their vehicles, when they want it, affordable, with minimal restrictions. They want to be able to spontaneously just go. Many older persons are perfectly content to scale back the square footage of their homes, but yet they find the loss of their vehicle to be excruciatingly debilitating. Finally, we know that services delivered in the community are fragmented. Consumers and loved ones don't know where to begin. Action is frequently driven by emergencies rather than a planned set of designed steps or tasks. Dignity and choice gets eroded when crisis is the driver.
Before you go on to your next page, Mr. Cerna has a question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Your citation of the statistic about limited availability of shelter beds for homeless seniors, does that come with the caveat that that's based on beds that are expressly limited just to seniors? Because I can't believe that.
Yeah, no, those are just for older persons, yes.
You know, I like to think we have a fairly robust continuum of care for homeless folks of all ages here in Sacramento. Of course, we want it to be much greater. But my personal experience, seeing what I've seen over a number of years about who is using the shelter beds, I see a number of folks that are well over 55 years old that are unfortunately having to rely on those resources. So I think it's important to make sure you say that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Having worked with the stakeholders and our internal operations, we've identified 4 priority areas. The kinds of things we're looking at for protection of vulnerable persons is specifically exactly what Mr. Natoli was getting at, which is broadening the use of specialized units, possibly co-locating staff, shoring up access to information for seniors and loved ones. For emergency housing, we're looking at ideas such as contracting for more dedicated emergency shelter beds for older persons, perhaps contracting for space at a residential care facility for the elderly for emergency purposes. For senior isolation and the lack of social contact and transportation, we would like to broaden the number of transportation options available for older persons, such as contracting with ride-sharing companies or broadening the telephone reassurance program with the senior volunteers. For elder justice, we're looking at things like contracting with forensic experts, as well as increasing trainings for staff on sound evidentiary practices. Before working at Senior and Adult Services, my father lived with me for 4.5 years. He had Alzheimer's. I was the youngest member of the family, so the first one he forgot. For the last 4 years of his life, I was simply the nice young man who lived upstairs. You know, the short hair. There isn't a day in which neither I, nor I'm sure any member of this audience, isn't touched by the innumerable issues confronting older people daily. Mr. Gill encouraged me to use this opportunity to teach you some of what is happening in the realm of senior protection, then to take a pause to see how we should proceed. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope you've learned a little bit about what APS does, as well as giving some attention to the very real issues that our community members are dealing with daily. Do you have any further questions?
Mr. Natoli.
Yeah, Ruth, well, thank you for your thoughtful presentation, and I know there's going to be some more dialogue, but one other question I wanted to ask about, and I know you've got folks here to represent the Safe House, but at the time that we were anticipating that was coming into our community, and I know that Supervisor Peters worked on that quite a bit, and obviously VOA is operating it. Do you see, because it wasn't clear to me from the report, do we see a need for additional Safe House beds? I mean, and if so, what would that take? Obviously, it's not inexpensive to provide that, although I think it's far more expensive and certainly far less humane for some of the things that occur if we don't do some of that, and allow, again, workers, when they do come out of a situation, I'm sure there's some terrible tragic stories that could be told, in addition to all the good work that's done, that recovery of funds and saving people from desperate situations. And I know that when we do the death review, talking about some of the abusive situations in all categories of people in our community. But I guess I'm curious about the Safe House. Is there, we have 6 beds as I understand it, and you may have the ability, I guess, on an emergency basis to find somebody alternative housing. But I mean, it would seem to me that there, with a growing senior population, if we're 250,000 seniors, and we know that we're going to be adding, 15 or 20,000 to the senior population annually for years and years and years to come, that's going to grow relative to the overall population, and that we're going to have, I think, more folks that are going to be, subjected to potential situations where they need to be taken out of the home to be safe in order to get stabilization. So, talk about that if you could.
Well, I don't have the statistics memorized for the safe house. What sticks in my mind is that somewhere along the way, I learned that approximately 3 persons per day are turned away from the safe house that are seeking some kind of shelter or refuge. In addition, though the safe house can be accessed by law enforcement, health care, private citizens, anybody can access it for free of charge, we know that 71% of their referrals actually do come directly from Adult Protective Services.
So 3 a day.
3 a day.
If I do that times 360, that's over 1,000 folks.
Yeah,
now, some of
or
those
it could be the same person.
Huh? Well, I guess it could be. Okay, but if that's the average, that still says that we're not meeting the need, I guess. And however you want to draw the statistic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Frost?
Why are they turned away? Or is there a reason they don't qualify, or is it just because it's overcrowded?
Some of the reasons have to do with qualifications, specifically like they have to be ambulatory. They have to be able to take care of their own basic needs. So somebody who is bedbound, can't feed themselves or toilet themselves would need a higher level of care than what can be provided at the safe house. So that's some of them. But then the other reason for the turnaway is the being at full capacity the majority of the time.
So if they were in desperate need, they're turned away, but there are other resources that you funnel them through.
We come up with creative solutions to big problems. Many times, Volunteers of America will work, and again, I don't want to speak too much for them, but I've found them to always be a flexible partner. And so when a person is presenting, they find ways to make it work. In addition, sometimes we will have to send people to hospitals for evaluation, and that can result in admissions. The healthcare providers wouldn't necessarily see that as the best safety solution, but their light is always on. And so many times that's part of the reason the Safe House came into being, was to avoid those kind of practices.
And do people generally reach you through the 211? Or how do people reach these resources? Is it through 211, or is it through a lot of different nonprofit organizations? What do we tell people if they come to us? Where do we tell them to go?
Well, first off, a number of telephone calls come to Adult Protective Services daily. Like we said, half of them never merit investigation. So approximately of that half that don't turn into investigations, approximately a third of them are going to, two-thirds of them are going to be for what we consider information and referral. That is, people that are actually just looking for what's a service that can help me. And so we function as an information and referral service like 211. If we don't know it, we send them to 211, and vice versa. 211 will say, oh, that sounds like somebody's been hurt. You'd better call APS.
But as to the Safe House, you might want to go see it. We don't talk about the address because it's like weave, but
yeah.
It was built by the BIA and a private fundraising effort that was very difficult because they ended up finishing it during the recession, and it took a while. And the county provides funding, ongoing funding there. So it's a very interesting project.
I would like to see it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Natoli?
Yeah, just one other thing, and kind of reflecting on the quote you have up here and your comments about the nice person that lived upstairs, that it seems to me too, as people try to retain their independence and do it in a way that has the support services as people progress in age. And I know there are people here in the audience, certainly from our Adult Aging Commission, but others as well, that that reflects too on the conscientious daughter who may be the caregiver, the person who is the or son who are looking out for the welfare of someone they love, whether it's their mother, their aunt, or a person that they care very deeply for, whatever the relationship. It would seem to me, though, that some of the things that would help APS and those that are responding to critical calls is the services that allow for caregivers to have the support that they need, so that whether those people are residing in their home or they're in this community and still living independently, whatever that might be. And so any thoughts about that? Because those are the types of services that, again, we do for one another, but then having that support where people are still working, they may be the son or daughter or relative, and trying to juggle all that. And so whether it's respite or other support services in or out of the home, I guess I'm curious about what you've identified as maybe being gaps that need to be filled.
Well, we've all got those gaps. My phone rings constantly with, "Hey Ruth, you work at Senior and Adult Services. Help me with my mother. Help me with my father. What do you recommend?" So there are in our community, there are paid caregiving resources. In addition, there's the in-home supportive services program for those who are on Medi-Cal and have a disability. So that's some caregiving. But primarily, people are cobbling it together as best they can, first within the family and then within their social networks. More than once, I went to work and forgot to leave a sandwich for my father, so then I'd have to call to a friend at a building near my home and have them go break into my house to feed my dad at lunch. So yeah, we do those informal things.
But there are nonprofits like Senior Care Solutions and others that someone who is wrestling with this whole thing can call, and they have a long list of referrals and get on their email list, and they do a great job.
Is the survey intended to identify some of those gaps, though? I mean, we were talking about this survey, I guess, next month, and it was outgrowth over the presentation we had last year from the Adult Age Commission. Is that what you're going to be looking to in the survey, or what is the survey going to entail?
The survey is going to look at specifically what it is that older people need in our community and what are some of the impediments to accessing those things.
Okay, just to follow on what Ms. Peters said, though, will there be some ability for the family members, whether it be sons or daughters or others, to then weigh in? Because again, if you're looking at this in a holistic fashion, not just in a nuclear situation, where what is it we can do as a community, certainly as family members, what the resources are? Will there be some outreach then in that survey, or is it just entirely directed to somebody who's crossed the threshold of being determined to be a senior?
It's directed for anybody who cares about older people in our community.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Ms. Frost?
So I'm trying to figure out how to help some people in my community who are not in your priority areas. They're not quite there yet, but they live in constant fear that they know they're heading that direction. Yeah. They're being priced out of house and home, and they don't have family to rely on, and they're already living in a studio apartment or whatever. And so I heard Senior Care Solutions. If someone calls your office, do you have counseling? Does someone have counseling services that leads people to resources, like if they're not quite in these drastic areas? Is there a list of resources that we can give them where we can help them know where to go to get help?
We have informal lists, so we have the services that we're aware of. So
if they call you, you'll counsel them?
Yes. Again, we go through what is it that they're really asking for, From there, we'll make a list of, here's the 10 things that you can do. But going back a slide or so, that's really what we call the referral merry-go-round, where we give them everything that we know. But so many times we find with seniors, and with anybody seeking services, it meets the needs for this group of people, but not that group of people. And so each person, you kind of have to work it through individually with what's going on with them.
Some of them have even said, I could work part-time, I can still do things, I can file, I could do it for really cheap if I just had an extra $100 a month. I know that's, it's hard we can't solve every problem, but it does break your heart to know that there's that stress for our seniors, and it's growing fast.
They got $2 this year for their Social Security raise, $2.
While their Medicare got increased at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I see the Adult and Aging Commission
Yes.
on here, but I don't have a name of who's going to.
Okay.
Are they
That's-
going to make a presentation?
They
Is
are.
someone
They're
going to?
I'm going to hand it right over right now to Rebecca Growlich of the Adult and Aging Commission. And again, thank you very much for your attention and wonderful questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your work.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Growlich. I have a presentation. I'm not sure how to get it up. Okay, thanks.
They're working on it. Looks like.
All right. So, good morning. While it's coming up, there it is. I'm going to talk about three things. One is to give you an update on what we've been up to since we presented to you in May of the past year. We also will give you the Commission's feedback on what Ruth just presented to you and the initiatives that she's put forth. And then I'll close with our own recommendation, the Commission's recommendation. This is a slide that we showed you in May, in which we came before you and strongly recommended that the county develop a centralized resource center to address senior issues. And it was a resource center that we feel should be available to everybody who has a need to address a senior issue, and that it is easily accessible by phone, walk-in, or by a website. Since May, we've had several meetings with people from Senior and Adult Services, and in our presentation we had highlighted a resource center run by the County of Marin, which we showcased to you as really a model example. So a joint group of us from Senior and Adult Services and the Commission went to tour it. We were particularly impressed that the call center is run by social workers, and they are co-located in the building where their health and human service departments are. So if somebody were to come in or to call in and the social worker needed additional support or help or information, they could just immediately turn to their colleagues. It was a really nice feature. Another thing that we were impressed by is their close working relationship with first responders. The woman who runs the resource center personally trains each new responder who comes on board and gives them a stack of bookmarks, which has some information about the resource center, and including contact information. So when a first responder encounters a situation that he or she thinks the person would benefit from the resource center, they can just hand over a bookmark, and as well as speak knowledgeably about the center. So in short, they really had an excellent triage system in place to address resource resource needs. What we thought was the kind of the weak link of their operation was actually the woman who runs it. She worked with the county to develop it. By her own admission, she worked virtually 7 days a week on it. I mean, this was her passion. However, any situation that is person-dependent is by its very nature vulnerable to sustainability. So that was what we walked away with as a kind of a concern. So since our joint visit to Marin, the Commission has continued to meet with the Senior and Adult Service folks, and we are all in agreement, and I think the dialogue that you had with Ruth just now illustrates it. It's really tough when you are suddenly faced with a situation, or even it's an ongoing situation, to know where to turn to find the resources to get the help for either yourself or for a senior loved one. But what we don't know is, why is this? What's really the root cause of this issue? So we have decided, and Supervisor Natoli brought this up, that to collaborate on a survey, and you can see that it's going to go live in just a few days and will be open all of March. And we are going through a number of different venues to try to get as much input as we can. I'd like to acknowledge Heidi Richardson, who reports to Ruth, for having really shepherded this project along. She's taken the lead, and she has incorporated everybody's input, which, believe me, is no small task. So we already have a meeting set up for early April, in which we will be assessing the data that we receive from the surveys. Before I go on, I'd like to actually pause for a moment and kind of go off script. And I'd like to acknowledge Ruth McKenzie. Under her leadership of Senior and Adult Services, the Commission has really benefited from an extremely collaborative relationship. And I think the illustration of what we've done since May together demonstrates that. And there are many more examples. Whenever we've asked Ruth to come to report on a specific topic, she's always made herself available. As the governing leaders of the county, I think you're really lucky to have her on your team. In fact, I would say that all of us who live in Sacramento County or have a senior loved one who lives in the county is really lucky that she's on our side. So the Commission wants to just let you know how much we appreciate Ruth. And I guess that's kind of a nice segue to my next slide, which these are the 4 initiatives that Ruth presented. She came to the Commission, she presented them, she asked our opinion. We had a great dialogue with the entire Commission, and the Commission definitely supports these. We agree that they're all important.
So it's a vote for yes, right?
That's a vote 4 times for yes. So my last slide is just to bring up our recommendation, the Commission's recommendation, which is again the need for an easily accessible one-stop to get information for senior issues. The Agency on Aging Area 4 predicts that in roughly 20 years there will be 500,000 people in Sacramento County alone who are 60 or older, and that nearly 75,000 of those will be 85 or older. The California Department of Finance agrees on the 500,000 people 60 and older, but look at their number. They're well over 100,000 people they predict will be 85 or older. So regardless of which number you choose to look at, the point is that there will be an increasing number of seniors just in Sacramento County. And this group of people 85 and older, that's really the most vulnerable segment of the senior population. So a senior resource center would actually help Senior and Adult Services mitigate many of their challenges, because I think we all would recognize that the sooner you intervene in a problem's life cycle, the easier it is to resolve or address the problem, and the less costly it is. So it really behooves the county, not only because it's the right thing to do to help seniors and to make resources more accessible, but from a financial standpoint, it's also beneficial. When we came to you in May, our recommendation was...
Just a second. I'm sorry. Pause. Mr. Kennedy has a question.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, now, maybe you're going to address this, and if you are, then just ignore me and move on. But you said a senior resource center needs to be addressed now. And what is that? What's that look like? Is that a brick and mortar thing? Is that a online activity? Mm-hmm. Is it? Because we've got the 211 resources, which I think are still underutilized and haven't come close to fulfilling their potential. But so when you're asking for that, what is it you're looking for? So,
in our image would be, yes, a brick and mortar place where people could go, because a lot of times seniors don't have access to the computer, they don't know how to use it. So whether it's one location or maybe it's kiosks in libraries, but there would be a place where they could go to get information. It would also be accessible by a phone call, so there would be a call center, and then certainly a website also. What's I think an important element is that whoever is on the knowledge side, be either a social worker or a gerontologist or somebody well-versed in senior issues. There's the technical side of this is a program that would help you. And then there's the compassion side of really having studied and understand how to talk to someone in a grief situation. As Ruth gave you her own personal illustration, and we all have those illustrations, but it's hard for me to break down and talk to you about my mother, who I just recently placed, actually my second mother, in a memory care unit, if you have no experience with what it's like to have your heart ripped apart. So,
Any further
and that was
questions?
exactly the Marin program. And there are other counties that have that similar programs. So when we came to you in May, our recommendation was that this should be run by the county, but we recently became aware of the fact that it's already being initiated in the private sector. Alpha One Ambulance Medical Services Corporation is in the early stages of developing a resource center, and that's under the leadership of CEO and President Tom Argel, who is here in the audience today and said he would be willing to answer any questions you might have of what he's doing. And I, too, would be more than happy to field any other questions you might have. And with that, thank you for, again, welcoming the commission to you.
Yeah, thank you. Any further questions? Mr. Natoli?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, if other members concur, I'd like to maybe hear from Tom just briefly about that. But before he displaces Rebecca, I want to thank you, certainly, Rebecca, for your leadership and that of the commission. I know I have a number of commissioners here. I think the work you've done, I've had a chance to appear before the commission a couple different times last year, and I know that your folks are very passionate about not just the issues we talk about here today, but generally about the work that you have been, I think, responsibility you've been given to as commissioners, but also the things that you want to bring to that and working with the community more broadly. So I appreciate that. But I guess I'd like to just hear from Tom briefly about Resource Center, because we're talking about these concepts. You're going to do a survey about kind of what's being done in the private sector that may very well be a complement to what we've talked about here today. So if we could.
I do have a couple speakers on this item.
Okay, all right. We'll just maybe briefly can hear then.
Good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Madam Chair and members of the board, my name is Tom Argel. I'm the CEO of Alpha One Ambulance Medical Services here in Sacramento. And for the last 20 years, my organization has been dealing almost exclusively with the older adults in the senior care communities. And what we've discovered is that, there are some challenges with transportation within our communities, not just in the senior care communities, but in the private residence. So over the last 20 years, we've really tried to find solutions to try and help the older adults get to their medical appointments with less than, not utilizing ambulances, but wheelchair access vans and sedans. So that prompted me to begin the first step of providing sedan services to the older adults that's affordable to get them to their doctor's appointments. Oftentimes they miss their doctor's appointments and then they access 911 because they've missed those doctor's appointments. And so it's creating this really difficult lifestyle for the older adults. So that was our next step, was to provide the lower level sedan services. And with all of that, I realized that there really wasn't a coordinated effort in the private sector and the public sector to work together to provide resources to the older adults. And as you've heard today with all the presentations, it is a concern. So I've taken the initiative to take a look at this, and I've worked with Carol Kinzel at Senior Care Solutions, and she has a great program, and I would really like to work with others like that in the community. So in the early stages of this, my concept would be to create a public-private relationship so that we could create a resource center for the seniors, which would include at my location to have, in the first pilot project, to have seniors come to my location, utilize the computers, internet. We provide transportation. There's a number of factors that we could enhance within our community. But that is the early steps, and to provide telephone assistance. And because of my broad range of relationships in the senior care sector, we would be able to connect them with the private and the public of either it's affordable housing or assisted living, board and care, hospice agencies, placement agencies, in-home care, home health care. There's just a number of sources that are available that are not really known to our population. So that's the early stages of this program.
Thanks, Tom.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We have two speakers on this issue, Leo McFarland and then Deborah Morrow.
Well, obviously, I'm not Leo McFarland.
Don't look at all like him.
Hi, Deborah.
Hello. It's nice to see you again. Leo indicated I could go first. I'm here today as the chair for Volunteers of America Senior Safe House Advisory Committee, and I'm a retired county employee. It was actually Ruth, prior to my retirement, the division manager for Senior and Adult Services. And I'm here specifically today to speak for the need for additional designated shelter beds for Sacramento's vulnerable seniors. Now, my understanding is I have 2 minutes or less to speak.
3
Correct?
minutes.
3 minutes?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, okay. Prior to 2009, when the
That's the city, by the way.
That is, okay.
Yeah.
I practiced the speed reading, so I'm going to slow it down a little bit. Prior to 2009, when the Safe House was built, Sacramento County Adult Protective Services, like most other California counties, had no reliable, safe, designated space to house seniors who were abused or neglected and could no longer live in their homes. Thus, community and county leaders committed themselves, thank you Supervisor Peters and Supervisor Natoli, who were there at the time, to locating and ultimately help build and support the Senior Safe House, the first safe house in the nation, specifically built for the purpose of emergency housing for vulnerable seniors age 65 plus. This safe house effectively serves as a receiving home and temporary foster care for seniors who, without an alternative, would have stayed in the home where they were being abused or neglected and or may have ended up homeless. Sacramento Senior Safe House has become a model for other jurisdictions seeking to replicate our safe house. Tours of the safe house by other counties are routine. In fact, I attended 2 tours recently where Central Valley County and a Bay Area county toured the safe house. It's an understatement to say that the Senior Safe House is a successful model. But there's rarely room at the inn. As Ruth talked about, daily VOA staff turn away seniors, some because they're not an appropriate referral, but mostly because the beds are all full. Adult Protective Services makes 70% of the referrals to the safe house. Other referrals come from law enforcement, hospitals, Sacramento Steps Forward, community-based organizations, and clergy. For those seniors who are not directly referred by Adult Protective Services, Safe House staff often involve an Adult Protective Services staff after completing an intake of a senior. The seniors that come to the Safe House are noticeably compromised. 25% of the seniors referred to the Safe House fit the definition of chronic homeless. The average age is about 72 years old. There's a 50-50 split between male and female. Most residents are low income and or lower middle income. Half have physical limitations, half have mental health disorders. 25% have mild to moderate dementia. A quarter are referred after being victimized. And sadly, most residents of the Safe House do not return home, permanently displaced for a variety of reasons, including most recently the lack of affordable housing.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Leo McFarland.
Thank you. Leo McFarland, Volunteers of America. I'm not going to go down the litany of services that the Senior Safe House provides. Just know that many years ago, as we as a community faced this issue and tried to figure out what was the best, most humane way to deal with seniors that were being abused in their own home setting, Maxine Krugman, who came before you many, many times to push for this issue, leveraged community support and energy to create the Senior Safe House. It's a unique safe house, and I appreciate any opportunity to tour the safe house with any of you that have not done so as yet. It's a beautiful facility. These are 6 bedrooms, not just 6 beds, 6 individual bedrooms that allows for someone to have a dignified stay with the program. The biggest one of the biggest hurdles, other than occupancy capacity, is a fear factor. The fear factor of a senior who is working with a social worker from Adult Protective Services who tries to convince an individual to come to the safe house. They don't know what they're heading into. And the fact that Homemade, Mercy Housing, and people like Maxine Krogman and Volunteers America invested in what is probably the most beautiful safe house in the country speaks to the credit that this community has. Volunteers America has spent since 2010 $1,056,632 in supporting the senior safe house. We're very grateful that in 2014 the County of Sacramento was able to find resources within their APS budget to in 2014 add $100,000 a year annual to that operating budget. In 2016 you were able to increase that to $250,000 a year. So we continue to work toward filling that gap, but this is something that we have invested our time, energy, and resources to make sure happens. This community deserves a senior safe house. It deserves another senior safe house in some capacity somewhere. Obviously, the numbers dictate that we're facing a crisis situation. Our seniors, all of us that have dealt with parents that suffer with dementia, realize the important nature of finding a location that will give Adult Protective Services the time and resources to resolve or at least deal with the issues that they're presented with. We know that the majority of the people that eventually leave the senior safe house end up in board and care. They're that disabled. So we would hope that as a community we continue to invest strongly in supporting an initiative that increases the capacity and investment in our seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Stop. Mr. Natoli.
Yes, Ms. Peters. Just very briefly, I'd just like to say that there's kind of four things that I heard that I think that as we look at budget, but also in report back that would be helpful to continue this conversation. And the last one being just the senior safe house. It seems to me that an analysis of that capacity and our ability to support certainly what we have now, but also the ability to maybe bring online additional safe house beds in a dignified manner. But I would also, for budget preparation, since we're now approaching March, and I know that departments look at this, what we can do in the APS area to be supportive of the ability to not only investigate, but maybe to do some additional follow-on, and that takes resources to do that, so some analysis around that. Thirdly, just the idea of the senior service center and maybe a model that would have the public-private partnership would seem to me that that's something that we should have a report back on. And lastly, just results from the survey. I think it'll be important to know what those that are most directly affected in this moment in time are thinking about it. That would may help inform our decisions both budgetarily but also from a policy standpoint. That's all I had. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Thank you all for being here and for your report and your good work.
Item 44 is the Residences of Murrieta Hills East Vesting Tentative Map Time Extension, a request to extend the vesting tentative subdivision map for 5 years for a property located on the east side of Stonehouse Road in the Rancho Murrieta Plan Development. The applicant, Walters and Land Planning. Environmental document, addendum to the final environmental impact report, final environmental impact report.
And
you're not Shelby.
Leanne Moffett, Sacramento County Planning Director, and I do have a PowerPoint. And Shelby Vocal, the project manager, is here.
Okay.
If we need her. All right, so the site is a little over 86 acres, located on the east side of Stonehouse Road, about 1,400 feet north of Escuela Drive, inside of the Rancho Murrieta Plan Development in the Cosumnes community. The request is another 5-year subdivision map extension to allow 4 single-family lots in the RD1 zone, 95 single-family lots in the RD3 zone, 4 open space lots, a sewer lift station lot, and a private road lot. With regard to background, the project was originally approved by the Board of Supervisors in December of 2007. It was accompanied with a rezone, an amendment to the Plan Development Ordinance, both of which are in effect. The vesting tentative subdivision map, which is before you today, and an affordable housing plan consisting of the payment of fees. That original project was approved on a 4-to-1 vote, and we have added some information on page 2 in the background section of your board report regarding some of that background and some of the concerns that were in place at the time. There are a number of conditions that are in the Plan Development Ordinance, notably on page 27 of that PD ordinance related to generalized CC&Rs, and also related to architectural review by a homeowners association. So those conditions that were developed by the board are in place. The original project would have had an expiration date of January 11th, 2011. State statutory map extensions extended that out to January of 2018, but the applicant is asking for another 5 years. This is a somewhat hard to read graphic of the tentative subdivision map here in the context of Rancho Murrieta. Shows all the open space with the larger lots. So without further action, the map will have expired as of January 2018. The Cosumnes CPAC did consider this in July of 2017, and they are recommending approval on a 7-0 vote. So therefore, staff recommended approval to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission considered this in December of 2017 and is also recommending approval on a 5-0 vote. So the recommended actions are in your board report, and they're also listed on this slide.
And I do want to comment. I don't think your microphone is on for some reason.
It's on. Do you want me to cover?
Huh?
Yeah.
There we go. Leanne and I had a brief discussion yesterday about the recommendations for all 3 of these map extensions, which indicates that the extension of 5 years would run from the date of final action by the board. I actually have some concerns about that language. I don't think it's necessary to resolve that here today, just that the board is just approving the extensions on the map, and when that runs from, Leanne and I will discuss further, but I just want to make sure that the board isn't formally stating that it runs from today's date. Versus December? Versus the date that it otherwise would have expired. So I think in this case it was January 11th of 2018. I think it's actually 5 years from that date, but apparently there's been some question about practice and planning. So I don't want to get bogged up in that discussion here today. I just want to indicate that for all of these items, the board is simply approving the extension, and it is whatever it legally is for when it starts to run.
Okay. So planning will seek something from county council that clarifies what the subdivision map and the county code allow for the counting of the 5 years.
Okay. Was the applicant planning to speak today or no? No. Okay. If you have any questions, Supervisor Frost.
I'm prepared to move approval.
I'll second the motion.
I'm sure.
Oh, hang on. We just popped up with another question.
Oh.
Not a question, just on the motion. I wanted to clarify, since the information is in there, that in December 2007, I did not support the rezone and the map at the time. Some of the issues have been addressed that were community concerns. However, there are still some of them that are outstanding, and so for that reason, I'm going to continue to be consistent and vote no on the maps.
Okay. Has everybody voted, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Natoli.
Okay.
And the motion carries with Supervisor Natoli voting no. Okay, for item 45, we have the Residences of Murrieta Hills West Vesting Tentative Map Time Extension. Request to extend the Vesting Tentative Subdivision Map for 5 years for a property located at 6307 Stonehouse Road on the east side of Stonehouse Road in the Rancho Murrieta Plan Development. Applicant is Walters Land Planning. The environmental document is an environmental coordinator addendum to the previous final environmental impact report.
Again, I have a presentation. I'll run through this fairly quickly. It is a different map, a slightly different location, but it has all the same parameters and issues of the item that you just considered. This one is a little under 60 acres at 6307 Stonehouse Road, approximately 1,520 feet north of Escuela Drive, inside of Rancho Murrieta Plan Development and the Cosumnes community. Another 5-year time extension is request. This one is for 99 lots in the RD3 zone, 4 open space lots, a landscape lot, a television tower lot, and a private road lot. Again, this was considered by the board back in December of 2007 with the rezone, the amendment to the plan development ordinance. It had the same 4-to-1 vote with the same set of issues as the prior map. The same discussion is on page 2 of your board report. Had the vesting subdivision map and the affordable housing plan with the payment of fees. The original expiration date of January 2011, extended to January 2018 by statutory map extensions. This graphic is that lot layout on the upper left-hand corner, and a blow-up of the layout. Without further action, the map will have expired in January of 2018. The applicant requesting the 5-year extension, the Cosumnes CPAC, in July of 2017, is recommending approval on a 7-to-0 vote. Staff recommended approval. Planning Commission considered it in December of 2017 and is recommending approval on a 5-to-0 vote. And we have not received any public comments this go-round. So the staff recommendations are in your board report and on the slide. And the same comments about the
Can I
plan
say,
development.
was the applicant planning to speak other than answer questions? Okay. I don't have anyone signed up to speak. And no comments, so Ms. Frost?
Move approval.
Second. Please vote.
And the motion carries with Supervisor Natoli voting no. Item 46 is the Hansel de la Cruz appeal from the decision of code enforcement that a zoning violation exists at 7482 Sachi Way in Sacramento, California.
Morning, Supervisors. Jared Whitcliffe with Code Enforcement.
You'd push the button and raise the podium, we'll be able to hear you better.
This one? This one.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Okay.
How do we forward? Okay. All right, so Code Enforcement issued a violation notice for a zoning violation against the De La Cruz property, and he has filed an appeal, and so...
Could you pause just a minute? We still can't hear you. Maybe, will it go up any higher, or?
We're going to have to implement a height standard for county employees. That better?
Oh, much better.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So the violation cited against the homeowner was for violating the yard parking standards in the zoning code for exceeding the amount of paving. The property is 7482 Sachi Way. It is zoned RD5 and is developed as single-family residential. The home was built in 2015. There is a companion section in the zoning code that also applies in terms of the issues going on its property, but it's kind of redundant to cite it. So we only cited the instance of exceeding the paving. There is earlier in the zoning code, there's a reference to homes constructed after the adoption of the zoning code in September of 2015. All new construction on lots under 10,000 square feet must have, they're limited to 40% paving, but then the remainder of the unpaved area is required to be 100% landscape with live vegetation, and then up to 50% of that landscaped area has to have the live vegetation. They can have rock elements and stuff making up the balance, but we only cited it for the exceeding paving because exceeding paving. They obviously are missing landscaping. We didn't do both. So the paving of the front yard area exceeds the 40%. The lot size is, or the front yard size is about 1340 square feet as measured by my officer, coming up with 40%. Of that amount, they are limited to approximately 536 square feet of solid surfacing. He measured the amount of paving that does exist during his inspection, and it came out to about 1,050 square feet for a total of 80% of the front yard paved. Just to point out, sometimes historically, with a lot of our paving cases, people will often ask, am I grandfathered in? I paved it before. You told me I couldn't pave it, this and that. So just to point out, in July of 2015, this was a vacant field. The home was constructed after the ordinance was fully in effect and adopted. When we look at the aerials on other properties, we'll try to take into account if paving existed before the ordinance came into play, and we definitely work with the property owners to make sure that we're being fair in our implementation of this ordinance. But in this case, we didn't have a house on the property when this ordinance was adopted. My officer's inspection on January 29th, 2018 shows basically one 2-car driveway and one 3-car driveway, parking lot from one end of the property line to the other, with a very thin dirt lines to the north and south of the driveways, and a very thin 2-foot dirt line running between them. And then there's tire tracks running all over the
Could I just ask a question before we leave that picture, Jared? So you're saying the total calculations that include the existing driveway or the front yard portion to where that green strip is there, when you said they had 1,000 square feet of paving and they're only allowed up to 500, so they have to remove at least one half of what's there where the car's covered?
One half of what you see in the picture should not be there.
Okay.
And so essentially,
of the portion that's separate from the driveway that goes to the garage.
No, the driveway counts towards the calculations.
It does?
But it's the greater of the two. So if you have like a 4-car driveway and your calculations come up to 500 square feet, but it takes you 800 square feet to get into a 4-car driveway, you get the 4-car driveway into a 4-car garage. So if you have a legally constructed full enclosed garage, you get that if it's over, no problem. Then your overages beyond that, it's difficult to pour additional concrete if you want to have a large entertaining patio or this and that, because you've lost it to the driveway.
Okay, so what has to be removed here then? All of that?
Everything to the right of the dirt strip in the middle of the photo.
So they're at 40% with what the garage had built with the house, and so any additional even walkway and so forth would exceed that, or?
It would. I mean, in the spirit of the law, we would allow them to have a walkway from the driveway to the front door. We wouldn't make them take that on, put stepping stones in there, or something of that nature. But yeah, essentially, you see a 6-inch rise behind the car where the driveway ends and the walkway begins. Essentially, everything from that rise to the sidewalk should be gone.
So my question is, did the builder build this extra driveway, or did the homeowner build it?
Our understanding is that it was done after the fact. When my officer,
after the fact, meaning after the home was purchased?
Yes. My officer was out there. We have 3 cases on the street.
I see. That's what makes me ask the question if the builder did it.
So when my officer was out there and at a different property talking to them about their violation, the person that did the concrete, or at least said he did the concrete, ended up working with them, and so that's how we came to the conclusion it was done after the properties became occupied by the buyers.
Okay, so, and then one more question. If the dirt strip weren't there, if it were considered all a driveway, did you say earlier that it's only what's on either side of the edges of the driveway, the boundaries of the garage? You can't, if you didn't have that dirt strip and the concrete connected it, would that be considered a driveway?
No.
Okay. So
the area leading directly to that door. So the 16-foot wide garage door, that area right there, exceeds 400 square feet, you get to keep it.
Okay.
Not 400 square, 40%, you get to keep it. But once you get beyond the boundaries of that 16-foot door, then you're going into your 40% calculation.
Okay. Then Supervisor Frost has a question before you move on.
Yes, ma'am.
And my question relates to when they put the driveway in, didn't they have to get a permit?
No permits are not required for flat work.
Oh.
And oftentimes, we'll be driving around, we'll see grass being ripped up and forms being laid down. on like a Wednesday or Thursday for a weekend job of pouring some concrete, and we'll stop by and tell people, hey, don't pour that concrete. We're going to come by on Monday or Tuesday, and unfortunately, we're going to have to tell you to rip this up that you just spent, a couple grand putting in. And, unfortunately, 100% of those times we have those interactions with people, we come out Monday and Tuesday and we find the concrete was poured anyway, see what happens.
And if they had put like blocks, if they had just laid brick down there, would that be considered okay?
No, it's still a solid surface. It's still
Any kind of solid surface,
yeah.
even though it's permeable. It's
if it was gravel, pea gravel rock, and that was out there where it's completely permeable and it has landscape. You can't plant trees, bushes, and a paver. But you can have those landscape elements when you have 60% rock, and so that way you're meeting your landscaping requirement then to have 50% of that 60% landscaped. But you don't get that by laying pavers across from property line to property line in lieu of concrete.
Thank you.
Okay.
And this property on January 29th. It looks identical when I was out there on the 13th of February to post a notice for today's hearing. There was no change. There was a question asked by the occupants of the home in December, January. If we just stop parking cars on it, can it remain? The answer to that's no. It's a surfacing requirement. We're not supposed to be putting parking lots in residential zones. So simply moving that car over to the other driveway doesn't solve the problem, and it still remains in that driveway today. The code section cited there is verbatim. I won't go through trouble reading it. You've seen it in your staff reports. It basically says that the area paved between the sidewalk and the furthest front wall can't exceed 40%, or the area leading directly to a garage. And then there's some qualifications for lots that are over 15,000 square feet that don't apply. This lot's 8,700 square feet. And then, as I said earlier, the surrounding area, we have 2 other homes built on the street. They were also built, they were built in 2016, just a few months after this house. This was the first of the 3. And they've paid more than their 40% allotment. All 3 were open cases and sent warning letters at the same time. The first one did rip out their concrete. Unfortunately, within the past week, they're now parking on dirt where the concrete used to be, and so we do have another case open against them as well, seeking to have that area landscaped and have the cars removed. And then the third case, we're working on some language barriers with them to make sure they fully understand what's happened before enforcement continues, give them the opportunities to correct their issues before being penalized. Possible remedies to the violation. Number 1 is just remove the excess concrete that exceeds the 40%. The other remedy they can pursue is seeking a minor use permit through the planning department. There is a way to legalize an excess amount of concrete that's poured through that process. A hybrid of the 2, which really is the second one, where some paving is removed and then a use permit is issued. And then if the violations aren't remedied, then the county's only option to abate the violation is to take the property to a public nuisance hearing, get a hearing officer's decision, and remove it for them at their expense. Any questions?
Any further questions? No. Is the homeowner planning to speak? No, back there.
Thank you.
Okay. Hansel de la Cruz?
No, he's not here.
Oh. Yeah, probably over her head.
This right here, right? It's not.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. I've never been to one of these, so I'm a little bit nervous. Not really sure how it works.
Could you tell us your name, please?
My name is Margaret Tomaloso.
Okay. Do you live in this home?
Yes.
And you poured the concrete?
No, I didn't pour it, but we like he said, we did have someone come out and pour the concrete when we first moved in.
Okay.
So we weren't aware that that we had to check with the county. I'm not sure if you guys received the letter that we wrote when we sent in for the appeal.
Yes, we did.
Okay. Like it says in the letter, when we Before we were able to purchase the home, we rented for a really long time, and we had a big, huge lawn there that we weren't allowed to water, so it just ended up dying. So we told ourselves, you know, when we move somewhere, we're going to be able to save a little bit of money on water. We're going to pour the concrete, and you know, in no way was it meant to be like a parking lot for the cars. It just so happens that my car is newer, so we park it in the garage, and I leave all the time, so it's easier for me to not have a car that's behind me on the driveway. I just, you know, we spent a lot of money when we first moved in there to get the concrete poured in both our front and our backyard. We've went to 3 different people to get quotes on how much it would cost to have it be removed, and we thought that maybe, you know, coming here to speak with you guys would be a little bit cheaper than what we were quoted to get the concrete removed. Someone did come by our house after we got our first violation and told us how much that we could remove, which is roughly, they told us 2 of the squares on the side of the photo that you guys saw. If we were to remove 2 of those squares, then we would be in compliance. I don't know if you guys are able to look back at the picture, but it's
I don't know, but I'll ask the code enforcement officer to come back and address that.
Okay, it was someone named Mike Sanchez, I believe his name was, that said if we remove 2 of the squares on it, then we would be okay and in compliance. Even to remove those 2, which is what we got priced out, was around $2,100 to remove the 2. When we spent, you know, when I did the math on how much we spent in total and then kind of did the square footage of what was poured and what we need to remove, that portion is about $4,400 for it to be poured. So like I said, it was a little bit cheaper for us to pay our violation fee and then request a hearing with you guys than to just spend that money to get it removed. They did tell us about the minor use permit, but the application fee as well is kind of high. So like I said, I figured that maybe we could come over here and speak with you guys and see if there was any way that we can find like a middle ground or be able to keep it that way. We wouldn't have to incur the cost that we can't afford to apply for a minor use permit or to pay to get it removed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Did you have anything further you wanted to say?
No, that's it.
Okay, and would you fill out one of the speaker request forms? Since we don't have your name on our records?
Who do I turn it into?
She's standing right up there.
Oh, okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, and then, so if you want to sit down, we'll have a further discussion here.
Right this time. And then, can you do the camera thing rather than pull up the PowerPoint? I got a picture we can. So we're.
Okay, so would you address the question of partial removal?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up a picture so we're all on the same page with what we're talking about here. All right. So this is February 13th visit that I was there. So my officer didn't provide the level of detail as to what sections of concrete would have to be removed to get underneath that threshold.
You said the far right 2 squares.
So she's saying far right 2 squares. I would assume to be these 2 over here. Now, just looking at the picture and based on my experience of how the concrete is.
Okay, that's not helpful.
We can see the vent in front of the house now.
It's a driveway. We want to see Metro Cable.
Those are likely
okay.
10 by 10 squares, between the expansion joints between the different sections of concrete. So I'd estimate each of those squares to be 100 square feet without actually taking measurements myself. So with the square footage being over essentially 500 something square feet, I'd imagine it'd be 5 of those squares would have to go, and it would be, well, there's 6 up to that lip that I referenced in my presentation that are in the 2 to the right. So if both those 2 right columns were to disappear, then perhaps they would be under their allotment. And the third, the very narrow column that the car is sitting on, would be able to remain. It's possible.
Okay, if you'd wait for a moment, Mr. Natoli has a question.
Yeah, Joe, while we're looking at this picture, because this gives a little different perspective than the other one that was in the packet. So I take it that's not a 16-foot garage door. There's not two cars side by side there. That's a 12-foot maybe?
No, it's probably a 15 or 16-foot door.
You can get two cars? Can you go two cars side by side in that garage?
It's rough these days, yeah.
Yeah. That looks awful small to me.
Well, the car's not all the way to the right either, so it's...
No, I know. It looks awful small to me. But I mean, so what information, was it one of the code officers that went out there and spoke with her?
Yes.
And I guess maybe I get some clarification, because you're saying 5 squares, the code officer said 2 squares, but you're saying what was referenced there would be everything from basically the passenger side of the covered car on over to have to be removed?
Yes.
But you could, that strip that the car could, I guess, barely fit on in front of the recycle can, that could remain?
Shooting from the hip and without taking specific measurements of those areas, yes. Just visually looking at it, I would estimate that each of those squares are probably 100 square feet, 10 by 10 area.
This is all approximate.
Yeah,
because you haven't measured it yet.
Yeah, and normally when we measure a excess paving case, it's a house built in the 80s, 90s, whatever, and we measure the entire yard area, the entire paved area, the old paved area, the new paved area. In this instance, because everything was new after 2015, that level of detail, there was no old new, it was just all new. And so he didn't piecemeal out what that driveway is versus the other concretes like we would do in historically developed properties. So we would have to go back to the site and measure specific segments of that concrete to know where 536 is capped off and where it's not. And it's totally at their discretion which 500 square feet to remove. If they wanted to remove the 500 square feet up between the walk, they wouldn't, but the walkway up against the house, and that comes up 500 square feet, so be it. Now they've met their paving requirement. If they want to remove the bottom 5 squares closest to the street, then so be it. We don't dictate to them which one to remove.
Okay, so I just want to be clear, because again, if in fact they had acted upon what was told in the field and done that and thought they were in compliance, if they got ahead, obviously they had this hearing scheduled, is it to be clear? So look at this picture. You got 3 squares going back to the walk that was built with the house. And so you're saying of those 6, and I guess there's portions that would be, there's actually 9 there, but they're not 9 full ones, that 5 of those larger ones would have to be removed in order to come in compliance.
That'd be the 500. Roughly, that'd be the 500 square foot mark. They're over 500. They have to remove approximately 536. So, I mean, kind of splitting hairs at 36 extra square feet.
So they might be able to keep some
if they were there. Yeah, if they were moved to 6 squares, I think they'd be in good shape. But again, I can't say definitively.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Cerna.
Yeah, so the homeowner mentioned that she had, or someone in her family had heard from an individual. She mentioned him by name. Is that individual employed with the county?
Officer Sanchez was the officer that did the inspection.
So,
That's who she speak of.
Okay, so one of our officers is the one that is supposedly explaining that you could just remove the 2 far right-hand squares and be good.
Yeah, it may be a matter of interpretation of what he thought he was conveying and what they were receiving. When he said remove the 2 far right squares, he may have been intending the run, and they just heard the front third.
Okay.
I can't imagine that he told them remove 2 100 square foot squares to reduce the concrete by 500 something square feet.
Okay, and then would you agree that the segment there where the car's parked on, that area is a bit narrower? It doesn't look like it's a 10-foot width. Maybe it's an 8-foot width.
Yes, I believe the part where the covered car is on is definitely narrower than.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And we're assuming those are 10 by 10 squares, of course.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Have any? Mr. Kennedy?
Move staff recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
So just so you understand, that means that you'll need to remove the square footage as recommended in the staff report.
Can I ask another question?
If you'd like to ask the code enforcement officer outside that,
Okay.
yeah, sure, then he can help you.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you so much. So we've done our nominations, and we have off-agenda speakers, Nancy Kitts and Laura Acosta and Jane McCauley.
Hi.
Hi, if you speak into the microphone, please?
Sure.
And maybe our clerk could lower the microphone?
Dave's got it down. There you go. Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name's Nancy Kitts. I'm with in Sacramento, and Jay McCauley is here from Woodlake Neighbors Creating Transparency, and Lola Costa. We have a few short videos we'd like to show you concerning the homeless encampments along the American River.
Okay, before we start, you requested 12 minutes. I'm going to start the clock now.
Okay, can we do an introduction then? Go ahead.
Madam Chairperson and members of the Board of Supervisors, we are here today as residents and friends of North Sacramento to share our concerns with you regarding the terribly precarious situation thousands of homeless individuals are currently facing in our region and the very environmental threats that are happening along the Lower American River. The Lower American River is classified as a recreation river within the state and federal wild and scenic river systems. According to the Parkway Plan, this section of the river is the central focus of the Parkway, which provides enjoyment to residents and visitors of the Sacramento region. Sacramento Steps Forward, the lead agency of the Sacramento Continuum of Care, conducted the 2017 census of all individuals experiencing homelessness in the region. According to this point-in-time count, the city and county has experienced an increase in the number of individuals and families confronting homelessness on a nightly basis. Their findings included a 30% growth in nightly homeless individuals. 56% of homeless people are sleeping outdoors. 85% growth among the homeless who are unsheltered and sleeping outdoors. Given these startling statistics, it's no wonder that an individual without permanent housing may choose to live on the streets, stay in a shelter, mission, single-room occupancy facilities, abandoned buildings or vehicles, or camp in parks and other public land. As a result, Sacramento's law enforcement and urban park and recreational agencies are finding themselves on the front lines of this issue because of the presence of homeless individuals on public parkland. Many of our homeless neighbors have found refuge within the riparian zones of the American and Sacramento rivers and its many creeks and streams. This is one of a growing number of tent cities where people without shelter are living in filthy conditions with no sanitation, a public health hazard. The volume of consumers present, the poor state of sheltering equipment, the limited outreach presence, and the general levels of uncleanliness appear to make these urban encampments areas where hepatitis A is likely to thrive. We've seen hepatitis outbreaks in San Diego and Monterey, E. coli outbreaks on the American River. And natural disasters like wildfires and mudslides are exacerbating this crisis. While homelessness is largely a social issue, it is apparent that homeless encampments along the American River waterways, and particularly along the Lower American River, are a major contributor to trash and other pollutants entering its waterways. We want to share 3 short videos that were taken over the last few weeks. The first one looks at the area adjacent to Sacramento Steps Forward headquarters on Garden Highway. Wada Parkway is next, and then an area north of Camp Pollock. All these areas are entirely publicly accessible. These videos are hard to watch. We thank you in advance for your attention.
Could I ask you about your organization of your presentation? Are you going to, each person is going to introduce one of the 3 videos, or are you going to run all the videos right now?
We're going to run all the videos right now.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, Metro Cable, go ahead. Does that complete the video presentation?
I believe so.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Supervisors, without a doubt, homelessness in Sacramento has reached...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you go introduce yourself, please?
I'm Lola Acosta.
Okay.
Woodlake Neighbors Creating Transparency. Without a doubt, homelessness in Sacramento has reached critical proportions. These videos show just a small portion of the more than 2,000 individuals who are unsheltered and sleeping outdoors in Sacramento. I'm going to eliminate some of my testimony in the interest of time. Matters surrounding homelessness are complex, with solutions that require a holistic approach and collaboration between federal, state, and local agencies and nonprofit organizations. The county must embrace new approaches and alternative frameworks for a long-term solution. We ask this Board of Supervisors to take the following comprehensive actions to respond to this immediate crisis of homelessness, the related health and safety consequences, and the impending ecological threats. First, declare a shelter crisis. Second, allocate resources to provide trash receptacles, restrooms, and showers in known encampments. 3, provide large temporary shelter sites that provides homeless Sacramentans a safe and sanitary place of refuge that will be used as bridge housing. 4, fast-track construction of supportive housing of homeless people by allowing developers to bypass the lengthy approval process. Set aside 35% of units in new affordable housing construction for homeless people. Pass a fair share ordinance that mandates the county to work collaboratively and in partnership with every neighborhood to find appropriate locations. 6, convene a regional task force of homeless service providers, public health, local leaders, and neighborhood representatives that holds open meetings, shares information, provides ongoing education to frontline organizations, highlights emerging issues, and solves problems. Sacramentans are compassionate people who want to help solve this crisis. Thank you for your attention to these important matters.
Thank you. That looks like a letter. Perhaps you wouldn't mind giving a copy of it to our clerk, and she could distribute it. No one could write fast enough to keep up with you there, and then we'll go to our last speaker and have questions.
I've edited this severely, so I will. I could send it to you.
Nancy has one.
You have one?
We have a good copy.
Okay. Thank you.
And your next speaker is Nancy?
Oh, we still have time?
You have 49 seconds. You're going to wind it up.
All right. Well, obviously, the video shows the state of affairs along the American River. You know, if we've gone in there several times and spoke with folks there who say that they would be happy to be somewhere else, even in a supervised or authorized camping location. The conditions are really awful, and the thing that always gets me when I go in there is the fact that nobody sees it, and so it's not there. We want to pretend we don't have tent cities because they're not on Market Street in San Francisco or in San Diego downtown. But we do have tent cities. We have many, many of them. And I believe probably, you know, the camps you've seen in these videos at least total approximately 500. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Was Lola going to give us a copy of that letter, or you have a copy?
I have a copy.
Okay, so there are several interesting ideas there, and I think perhaps our county executive and our homeless initiative director of homeless initiatives should respond, because some of the things I think we have already done or in the process of, and they can take those things into account. But there are a couple questions for you from board members. So Mr. Cerna.
Thank you. So first of all, I appreciate you taking the time to obviously produce a video that obviously is intended to impress, not necessarily in a good way, but impress upon this board and the public the current conditions on the Parkway. And I think before you even entered chambers today, there was I made mention of the fact that we are all continuing to hear from constituents like you about those conditions. And So I do appreciate the fact that you put some time and energy into how best to, I think, effectively document what's happening. In addition to what the chair just mentioned in terms of asking staff to look into some of the suggestions, I'd like to put a little more detail on that. I'd like to know, Mr. Gill, perhaps it could be a report back at our next board hearing, what is involved in declaring a shelter emergency. I'd like to know what other California jurisdictions have done so. And I would like to know what's involved in just the process of how this board might consider it, and whether or not it has any bearing relative to access to more resources, whether it be fiscal or otherwise. Because I'm hearing more and more from my constituents and certainly the advocacy community that it's something that they're interested in, but I'd like us to have an informed discussion at some point about it.
Okay.
The idea about restrooms and showers is a problematic one for me. I will tell you that as much as the first reaction might be, well, let's provide those facilities to folks that are camping illegally in the parkway, it's a very sharp double-edged sword. So as soon as you begin to make accommodations in places where folks are engaged in unsanctioned camping, I don't think it's actually going to function the way you might think. I think it's going to actually encourage more of that activity and therefore result in more of the adverse impact that you're concerned about and that I'm concerned about. So I'm not a supporter of that, but
it seems very logical. But
it does, and it tugs on your heartstrings to see folks that are using 5-gallon buckets as toilets and having to bathe in the river, or what have you. But again, I think we have to be very thoughtful about how we are going to provide the resources that people obviously need for shelter, other than a fabric covering and a bucolic riparian setting. And as the chair mentioned, and as I mentioned last week when I was with you for what I thought was a very productive conversation in North Sacramento about this very subject, I would respectfully ask you and others to give us a chance. We, the county, have spent a lot of time, especially all last year, both on the housing front, working with the city, and on kind of rebuilding our continuum of care for homeless constituents in Sacramento County, not just in the Parkway, but across the county. And that is not something that is going to bear fruit immediately. It's going to take time like anything else. And I would just please ask for your indulgence and let us have a little time to see what fruit we can bear in the short term and the long run. Some of what we've set in motion is very complicated. And some of it is very complementary to what other jurisdictions are doing, namely the city of Sacramento. And by design, that's what it was intended to do, is to be complementary to function as a broader continuum to serve folks regardless of if they're suffering in the city or the county. So I know you know that. I know you've acknowledged it, and but I will say that I think documenting the situation the way you have is very effective, and it does again impress upon this board the need to stay on top of this subject as best we can. It is the most complicated subject that we deal with. It has an obvious humanitarian aspect to it and a equally obvious environmental issue or impact associated with it. So thanks for being here. Keep up the good work in terms of your advocacy. It's not falling on deaf ears.
Thank you so much, Supervisor.
Thank you.
that's why I thought having staff answer the letter, there were numerous items that some version of that is already underway, and it's getting starts slowly and takes time, and as Supervisor Stern said, some of it's really complicated. But I think on paper it might be easier to follow than a conversation. So then, Mr. Natoli.
Yeah, well, I too want to just thank Jane and Lola and Nancy for, certainly this isn't only me the attending a given week, but certainly for the visual. I think it, again, provides a portrayal in time of what certainly the impact is, both to the physical and environmental, but certainly the people. And I think, if I heard you correctly, you said there were about 500 people you estimated in the encampments you showed there at that point in time. A question I had, when were the videos taken, but kind of what time frame?
They were taken last month and this month.
Okay, so they're pretty current. I guess one of the things, in addition to, it's been talked about by my colleagues already, looking at what you put forward relative to convening folks, to declaring a shelter crisis, and to some of the other things you've put forth as a request. I for one, along with this, obviously our board has spent a lot of time, as noted, would like to know, it's one thing to have an encampment, and that is indicative, obviously, of some human need and a need to do something to address that. But the photos, again, which are, replication of what we've seen, or duplication of what we've seen, in the sense that we saw these last summer, Supervisor Cerner brought some forward, we saw some in neighborhoods that Supervisor Peters brought forward, the impacts, but the trash, the filth, the debris, I guess what I'd like to know is that it's one thing to have an encampment. This happens on a daily basis. Those materials, items are brought forward. I know we're making some advances, but when we could expect, at least we can say we're keeping up with the issue out there, because if those photos are current, to see the debris that is strewn, some of it obviously by human activity, others by wind, water, rain. We haven't had a lot of rain recently. We're going to get some more this week, but because to have those pictures continually presented to this board, recognizing that the teams are putting forward, the efforts we're making, and we're taking out 4 tons a day of material or whatever it is, then if we need to put more in place, if you need to have 10 teams, but my view, as one member of this board, member of this community, that portrayal, if that continues to be the case, then we've got to do more. One, obviously working with the homeless situation, but that filth is shameful. It's shameful. It's a shame on us, and a shame on them for doing it. But I just, again, my plea is, again, and this is not criticizing, I know we've done a lot, Nav, and I look at you and Rob, I know you guys are on the front lines, but then if we need more resources, then I want to have that conversation here. If we need to have 10 more trucks and 20 more people and, and 1,000 more hours a week to get that cleaned up in advance of whatever we're able to do to ultimately, hopefully overcome the problem, then I believe we need to do it. If $5 million isn't enough in the initiative, if it takes $10 million, then I want to have that debate in these chambers about, one, what we're doing to help people, but secondly, to clean up that mess. That cannot continue to be, it is not acceptable. It is not acceptable. So.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What?
Sorry, I'm slow on the uptake. I just wanted to thank you for bringing the videos, because they really helped. I went out and walked the American River, and I did not see it in the same way, but I was in just one place, and I imagine it took you quite a bit of time to pull all that together, and it really does, a picture does say 1,000 words, and we all acknowledge that there's a big problem, and we're trying really hard to invest into the problem and into the solution. So thanks for coming out.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate your attention on this. We did do some research on the declaring an emergency shelter, which I'd like to share with Mr. Gill and the rest of the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any comments from the county exec?
No.
Board members?
Yes, thank you. Just again, I sent a email invitation to my colleagues and select members of our executive staff yesterday to a dedication that will occur this Thursday at 4:45 p.m. at Golden One Center, and this is a very special event for me personally, and I would say for the broader community. People are going to learn how special it is. But this will be the dedication of an art piece, a new public art piece entitled Flight, that was created by 3 of our artists in the local art collective, the Royal Chicano Air Force, Esteban Villa, Juanishi Orozco, and Stampadilla. And this was in large part funded with tobacco litigation settlement proceeds that were administered through my district office, and turned out to be incredibly poignant, at least for me. It's got a lot of aspects to it that are reflective of our local region, the people in it, and the legacy of that art collective. And we're looking forward to a great event on Thursday afternoon. We'll have certainly members from the SMAC Commission, City Council, all of whom were involved and instrumental in getting this piece installed. It really represents I think, the crowning piece to the public art that graces that particular facility, and very proud of it. So I hope that my colleagues will be able to join us. Thank you.
Supervisor Frost?
I want to request, I wanted to ask you, Nav, since we're getting ready to head into budget season, if we could get a workshop on the state of our reserves. I know we have a policy at the county that automatically reserves 10% of any of the increase in our discretionary funds, but I wanted to know if you could come back with a workshop that would give us an idea of where are we in comparison to others, and what is the condition of our reserves, and what can we do to improve it?
Okay. I'll come back on that.
This meeting is adjourned to closed session.